So we've got some interesting social media posts that have come out from Gab. Apparently, the would-be Trump assassin made several posts defending Joe Biden and attacking many prominent conservatives, which is interesting. What kind of liberal Joe Biden supporter would be on Gab? Only the most fervent anti-Trump, someone who's deeply involved and trying to actively promote a cause to a great degree. Now, the CEO says they're not sure they can confirm this, but it is basically, it seems pretty close. They're saying law enforcement requested this under emergency disclosure. And so it seems to be the first ever definitive proof that the individual who tried to kill Trump was a Biden supporter. Now, take it for what you will. They're also saying they can't confirm it, but at the same time saying it's definitive proof. Perhaps it is. We'll talk about that. And there's a bunch of other news, but it is a relatively wild news day in that the news is, it's one of those days where there's no massive stories, it's a bunch of little stories. And we got now from the media, Kamala Harris is gaining ground among Gen Z, which I plumb don't believe. But we'll talk about that. They keep trying to play this game where they're like, she's the meme queen and she's brat. And it's like, yeah, okay, I don't know if I believe that. But before we get started, my friends, head over to mypillow.com. Use promo code Tim because we're all big fans of Mike Lindell and he makes great pillows. So buy pillow at mypillow.com. And they say you've asked for it and MyPillow listened. They're finally bringing you the most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. Adjusting to your exact individual needs, regardless of your sleep position, helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets, only $25. Brand new mattress toppers as low as $69.98. And their famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25. Go to mypillow.com. Use promo code Tim. You'll get a huge discount, including the premium queen-size MyPillow, only $19.98. They also got a phone number. That's 1-800-925-9096. Shout outs to Mike Lindell and the crew and the people who work over at MyPillow. We're big fans, and we appreciate the work that he did, the sacrifices he's made, and the support he gives to a bunch of different prominent voices in the space who believe in freedom. Also, make sure to head over to timcast.com and click Join Us to become a member and support the show directly. This show is made possible thanks in part to the Avalanche. That is all of our members. Be the snowflake in that avalanche. For $10 a month, you help make all of this possible. You'll get access to our Discord server to hang out with like-minded individuals. They got pre-shows. They got after shows. They have workshops. It's really, really cool stuff. Very productive community. And it also helps support the show. So you'll get access to our members-only uncensored show coming up at 10 p.m. tonight. You don't want to miss it. Smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with all your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and everything else is Brilyn Hollyhand.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Brilyn Hollyhand, chairman of the RNC's Youth Advisory Council and author of the brand new book, One Generation Away, Why Now is the Time to Restore American Freedom. 18 years old, and it debuted at number 2 on the Amazon bestsellers list. So I'd say that's a pretty good testament to the American dream right there.
And you are of the opinion, nay, the view that Gen Z does not like Kamala Harris.
I completely am of the opinion. As a first-time voter, I got to say, I think she's turning more voters off than turning them on. So
it's so weird that they're like, Gen Z loves her, and I'm like,
not at all. No, we're laughing at her, and I think she's going to poll worse than Biden did with the youth because, again, she's the laughing stock.
Well, we'll get into it. Thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. Libby's hanging out.
I'm hanging out. I'm Libby Emmons. I'm with the Post Millennial and Human Events.
I'm so happy you're here, and I'm happy you're here too. I think it'll be a fun show. I'm Hannah Claire Brimla. I'm a writer for scnr.com. That's Scanner News. Follow them at Timcast News on the internet. Let's get started.
Here's the first story. This is big. Shocking social media posts of Trump shooter Thomas Crooks are revealed by social networking website CEO. Now, what's strange is the language used in that it is unconfirmed, but also definitive proof. Take that for what it is. It seems to be based on law enforcement requests. This is his account and posts he made. And I think they're just trying to be careful in saying unconfirmed. But let's give you the news and you can draw your conclusions. And I'll stress, it is a strange headline because the Daily Mail is definitively stating these are the posts of the shooter. They say the CEO of Gab revealed posts that he claims may have been written by Donald Trump's would-be assassin Thomas Crooks. And I just want to clarify, like, the games they're playing with how they're wording these things. Torba said on Wednesday that an unnamed law enforcement agency informed him that Crooks may have posted pro-Biden messages on Gab. a platform known for its alt-right users and conspiratorial content. Oh, you love that, don't you? I don't believe that's what he said. I believe they received an emergency disclosure from a law enforcement agency notifying them of these posts for the individual, which lead him to believe that it was definitive proof, though he could not confirm that was the case. It's weird language. I'm going to stress that for a millionth time. So we have some of these posts. They're all pro-Biden. They say in a post from February 2021, the poster replies to an electoral projection with, "Didn't you also think Biden would lose in a landslide? Yeah, I would not be very confident in your election predictions." In another post, the Gab user defended Biden's border policies, saying they don't incentivize human trafficking and linked to a study that compared crime by undocumented migrants with those of legal migrants and American citizens in Texas. The poster wrote, "Biden executive orders don't incentivize trafficking as human traffickers aren't interested in citizenship. Likewise, the majority of illegal immigrants are not criminals, and in fact, some studies, such as the one linked below, show lower rates of crime committed by these individuals." I think they're trying to be careful here, but I think it's a 99% that these are the posts from the guy. I think it is obvious that this dude was anti-Trump because he tried to kill Trump. And we're getting this argument that he was a registered Republican. And he was like, a bunch of Democrats voted Republican for Nikki Haley.
Yep.
That doesn't mean, and there are Republicans who don't like Trump. So this is a strange story. And I will stress this, especially with how the Daily Mail headlines it as though it's a definitive fact, but then goes on to insert every possible caveat imaginable. So
I can understand why the Daily Mail is trying to walk the line, right? You don't want to be the news organization that's proving or publishing something as if it's been proven completely. But I do appreciate that Andrew Torba and Gab are coming out and saying, like, look, this is the interaction we've had with law enforcement. This is what they've requested from us, because we get no information from the government. I mean, they're not even putting out sort of the, like, here's the profile we have created for this person based on what they have. They're really giving us no information, including initially they said he had no social media activity at all. And then it was like, well, he was on that gaming website. And also maybe it turns out he was like intentionally going on to maybe more conservative platforms to agitate in favor of Biden.
Also, even if he didn't have a social media profile, that is a social media profile in itself. So that has to be intentional at this point to not have a social media profile. But it's true what you say, because normally these law enforcement agencies would hold press conferences every day and we would keep hearing about it. Just think about with other shootings or the bridge collapse, it's like they just keep updating you as to when there's going to be a briefing.
They try to look busy.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I totally think we've had a lot bigger press conferences on more minor stories, and there's been nothing. The only things we've seen is from House Oversight Committee testimonies where they've subpoenaed them to come in person.
Right.
And obviously that turned into the resignation of the Secret Service director. Two big things I see here. First of all, this is another example of a media cover-up. I mean, they constantly try to tell us in the days following, oh, he was just a Republican who was upset with Trump's policies. He was just a crazy guy. And we're like, no. This is more than just a crazy guy. Like, obviously there's some more behind this. And then a good point that you made, he intentionally went into a conservative safe space, made an account, and put very long posts out replying. He wasn't in his own territory. This was intentional. I mean, you look at those posts, these are paragraphs with like articles attached to it. He spent time and was meticulous with us.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I didn't even read some of these. These are in-depth analyses talking about percentages, years. Look he's like, the turnout in 2020 election was 66.7%. 2012 it was 55. Now if you do blah, blah, blah. This is a guy who was deeply active.
Yeah.
I kind of have a picture in my mind of who he was. He's a very anti-Trump guy, lives in this media world of anti-Trump where they say all these things, and then he wants to go into the right-wing spaces, and he's angry with these people. He's going after them. Didn't they say that he wanted to kill a bunch of the Trump supporters after he shot Trump?
Yeah, because they had that explosive in the car that he didn't set off.
Right. I think they were saying that it wasn't operational.
Yeah.
That's what I just saw today. But they were mentioning that he also had plans on just basically shooting everybody. That's why I don't like when they say he missed, because he didn't. He hit the Trump supporters that he hated. I think these messages are his. I think it's a fair assessment based on what Gab is saying. And I will stress that they did also say in their emails it was definitive proof that he's a Biden supporter. It's like, okay, it's tough. I don't know. But
Major.
It makes sense. You've got a guy a few years ago. Then he watches the news media and they say all day, every day, Trump is Hitler. He's an existential threat. He must be stopped by any means. And this crazy guy says, okay, what do I got to do? That being said, I do not believe for a moment the story of what happened in Butler, PA was literally just crazy guy did crazy thing and got lucky.
Not at all.
You think that he had people behind him?
I mean, there could be weaponized incompetence. I don't know if it was Luke who said that, or I'm stealing credit from somebody else we had on the show. But the idea being that it takes but one person in official capacity. Secret Service knew there was a threat. Trump's in the holding zone, and they say, hey, do we still have that threat active? And one person goes, nah, you're good.
But what I had heard was that Trump's team didn't know there was an active threat. So there was a miscommunication somewhere along. Like, it's very weird to me.
But did you hear the thing where, like, Jack was talking about this, how the Secret Service didn't show up for the briefing that morning, and so they weren't all on the same frequency?
I heard that too, which is insane. That's crazy.
That was
Come
from, I
on,
think,
how is it
Senator
an accident?
Ron Johnson's report. The Secret Service did not show up for the morning briefing,
And
so they weren't all on the same
And Cheadle
frequency. And there was a whole bunch of, like, you have to talk to this person to talk to that person.
And Cheadle didn't talk to any of the agents on the ground the night after, like in the hours afterwards. So there is something wrong there.
And we have a whistleblower.
Yes.
I believe it was Josh Hawley posted it, that they denied additional technology, drones, and security. I kind of feel like somebody wanted something to happen, and there was an effort to make it.
I'll put my tinfoil hat on here and say that I think you're right. I mean, that's a pretty outlandish statement, but I think it's absolutely factual by what we've seen in the past few days. I mean, I think that this was clearly an incompetent action, clearly a misstep, a major misstep in Secret Service regards, where they have a no-fail, policy, and this was a major failure. Obviously, it resulted in a resignation, but I don't think we stop there. I think the House still needs to investigate, and it needs to go further than the House. I would expect the FBI to investigate, but I don't know whose side they're on in the situation, so it's unfortunate.
Well, I hope Trump wins, and then Trump's like, okay, figured out who did that.
Well, I think Mayorkas should have to come before everyone too. I mean, he is ultimately, even, Cheeto would say the buck stops with me.
Yes.
And it's actually Mayorkas who has already been impeached by the House because he didn't take our national security seriously at the border.
Did you see where Ro Khanna questioned Cheadle and said, do you know what happened to the head of the Secret Service when there was an assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan? Did he resign? And she said, no, he didn't. And Ro Khanna was like, yeah.
He actually did.
And what are you doing here? What are you doing here, Cheadle?
He's going to be at Bitcoin conference too.
Oh,
yeah. I'm not a big fan of, like, I don't know if there's any Democrats I'd actually consider as good, but Ro's as close as you get.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's at least a thinking person, which you got to appreciate.
That's
these
something.
days.
That's big. Yeah, that's rare.
I don't trust any of it. And
I think that's the problem, though. There's so many Americans who don't trust any of these systems, and the longer we have this lack of information, the longer it cultivates this. Who do we even look to? Who do we look for? I mean, there is this messaging that was coming from the Biden administration saying we need to have unity, right? And yet they have done nothing to try to restore any confidence.
That's
in this
because
agency.
you're missing what they meant by unity, right? You watched Biden's
questioning
speech
us.
last
Oh my
night.
gosh.
Biden's speech last night, where he said he resigned from the race to unite his party.
And for the younger generation.
He said to unite his party. And then he had a whole bunch of rhetoric about, I'm too old, and so now you should bash Trump for being, younger than me, but still, older. So, yeah, but I mean, that was the thing about that. He said that he was stepping down to unite his party.
What I thought
it wasn't about democracy. It was about Democrats.
Yeah. What I thought was huge there is he kept using the phrase, pass the torch to the younger generation, pass the torch.
Which
they
was
ripped
the
the
thing.
torch out of his hand. He didn't pass the torch to anybody. They ripped that thing and said, you're done. And he finally gave in.
Yeah,
And
it was definitely a coup.
You see the
I think
bruising?
so.
You see the bruising on his face?
Yeah, what was that about?
I don't know if it's actual bruising, but people are pointing out there's a dark spot on his face and around his eye.
Him and Obama got in a fist fight. That's what it
Or
was.
the injury was that he was on the plane and he fell and hit his face.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
And that's why they wanted to rush him to the hospital. And maybe it was a stroke. Maybe it was a stroke and he fell and hit his face. And
It's
they were,
dangerous when old fellas fall.
or maybe somebody made him fall.
Well, just look at the comparison. He had just done an address to the nation 10 days before that, the 14th and the 24th. The two comparison pictures, if you look at them, completely different, obviously with having some injuries in the face. So poor guy hasn't had a good few weeks.
No, he hasn't. I mean, the real issue for me with Biden is, the fact that this all could have come out months and months ago, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think he's problematic for a ton of reasons. I don't like him, but he also didn't do anything to win him any favors among Democrats. And I think that's why you see this division with Obama, right? Mm-hmm. There's this rumor that Obama's going to come out in support of Kamala Harris, but he's just waiting to give Joe his moment in the sun, right? And really, I think that no one wants to be affiliated with the Biden-Harris administration because it's just been errors and missteps and intentional evils all the way along, even for Democrats who look at this and say, why did we back you? Why were you our last option in 2020?
Well, you'll remember this. We were calling out Biden's, mental cognitive decline when he was running in 2020. Mm-hmm. Like 4 years ago, we were saying all this, and they're, you can't attack him. He has a stutter. How dare you do that? And now they've come out only because it was bad for polling. They don't care about Joe Biden's health. They don't care about the future of the country. They just care about the Democrats staying in power. And when they saw the poll numbers, they said they had to switch it around. That was it.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember in the 2016 convention, Bernie had some kind of mark on his face?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember? People were saying that they thought he got punched or something. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting as we're talking about it. I looked it up. But I going back to your point about Joe Biden's stutter, I was watching, what was it? I mean, Fox News pulled the clip up. I think it was the 5. And it was like Joe Scarborough and a bunch of people. And then when they're like, and then Joe said, a young boy with a stutter made it. It's like, oh, I was welling up. And then Whoopi Goldberg's like,
Stutter's a lie.
yeah, there's no stutter. What are you talking about? Like, I never had a stutter.
No. I mean, look back at the 70s when he was running for, his first term in Senate after his whole family got killed, or like in the 80s, or at any time,
perfect.
or when he was out there.
Did he have a stutter when he was 5 or 6?
criticizing- Yeah, or did he have a stutter when he was criticizing, Clarence Thomas? No, he did not.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between a stutter and a brain freeze and completely just not being able to have conversations with people, remember names, read off a teleprompter.
Finish sentences,
That's not
complete thoughts.
That's not a stutter.
Maybe, you know where he got the bruise, you guys? It was when he was fighting Medicare.
That's true.
That was
I don't know
it.
what
Pull that up.
was.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, I like that it's like, remember his stutter as another reason that you probably shouldn't criticize his speech, right? At one point, his doctor had released this medical report, which they always tried to like draw any attention to, and they'd be like, well, he has a raspier voice now, but it's not an issue.
He's had a cold for a month and a half. So.
For his whole life, apparently.
So if you watch this,
One note, can we look at his eyes?
this.
He's not looking at a teleprompter.
Oh, no, for sure.
The teleprompter is like up on the mantle, apparently.
No,
He
we
is
covered
not
this at
looking
Post
this.
Millennial last
Oh,
night,
good,
and I
yeah.
wrote this, and my first sentence was, looking somewhere above him at the teleprompter.
His advanced team is horrible. They
Yeah,
could, like,
well, they
where's
don't
the
care.
teleprompter? No, they don't.
He's an afterthought. They
don't.
gave him the ice cream social. They shuffled
Yes.
him off to bed.
look at his left chin right here.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
Fun, too.
right. Yeah, I agree.
It's actually really crazy. Wow.
Yeah, and other people mention there's something around his left eye, but I'm not sure I see it. The chin you can see
That's noticeable.
for sure.
Yes. And that's not COVID.
They probably put
No.
makeup on it too.
Right.
So that's probably like coming through.
Sure before, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. We can conspiracy theorize 2 things. He fell and hit his face, or he got hit in the face.
Look, he said Saturday to Sunday morning, somewhere in there is when he changed his mind. I mean, who knows what happened? What I find fascinating, too, is that we're going to go into this Joe Biden lame duck period, right? Because he says he's not resigning. I mean, if you look at his X account today, it's like basically all platitudes. It's like the worst Hallmark card of all time, where he's like pretending.
These one
he's
sentence
doing
things
something.
from last night, yeah.
Right, it's super weird. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what to do. And it's sort of the collapse of, what at one point they think they would have tried to carry off as a triumphant political legacy.
Yes. Well, two things I think are funny there. So sorry.
No, go for it.
One of them is you say the little Hallmark sayings he keeps saying. Notice that they're just putting the text because the videos are so bad. Some of them he messed up when he read off the teleprompter.
Right.
So they couldn't put the actual video footage. They're just putting the text of the speech on Twitter because nobody's going to catch him on that. The second thing, you talk about this lame duck period, and we were talking about this earlier off camera, but we started seeing that today. Like Netanyahu was the first world leader to come after Biden's dropped out. They had separate meetings, like 3 hours apart, because Kamala's like, I don't want to be in the same room with him. Like, get me away from Biden.
Plus, she had to go talk to the sorority.
Oh, yes.
That's super
Oh,
important.
that-
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very
Why vice presidents are never this involved?
No, not until today.
But they're
No,
trying
she-
to set her up
she has
to be
been
a
involved.
takeover.
She's
for
the
a
president.
week. Yeah, they're trying to install her as president without anyone really noticing,
Yes.
so that
Yes.
they just can push her into the election spot. And
Hear me out. Biden has called her the president, I think, like 8 times.
He has.
Yeah.
And he's called Trump as vice president. That's
right.
Maybe Kamala's taking over as president, Trump's VP. We don't know what's happening.
I mean,
that would be like in the old days when your
know how I feel
opposition
about
Yeah.
becomes
What about
the
that?
vice
That's
president.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
that's how it used to be. I think that was actually a good idea.
I think it was a good idea too. That's how we ended up with George Washington and John Adams. I
Yeah,
think that was a
first
good
place
idea.
is president, second place is vice president.
I agree. I think that is a solid idea.
Well, then
We should
picture
go back to
Trump as
that.
Biden's VP for the past 4 years. That would have
Well,
I mean,
that
but-
would have been.
Yeah.
We would have had better standing.
gotten things done.
Yeah,
Yes.
we would have
The
had.
Republicans
a
would have had the
better
Senate.
Exactly.
He would have been the president of the Senate. He
Exactly.
would
You
have
have
been the tiebreaker.
representation in the
Yes.
executive branch.
It gives a broader swath of the American people more representation.
Let's pull this up real quick and just add this while we can. Josh Hawley says a whistleblower tells me local law enforcement partners and suppliers offered drones to Secret Service before the rally, but Secret Service declined. So hold on. You were saying this a moment ago that they didn't show up to the briefing.
That's what Libby was. That's
What you were saying?
Yeah.
That's right. That's what Jack was saying based on the Ron Johnson report in his Tucker interview, which was killer. I don't know if you guys saw it.
It sounds like they were in on it. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying she wants a criminal investigation. I think there's probably a lot of Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I wonder what Josh Hawley's thinking, and they're thinking they were in on it.
Oh, yeah.
Someone was in on it. It's not just some dumb kid who slipped past the entirety of Secret Service, flew a drone over, had a rangefinder. None of that makes sense.
You know what this reminds me of? That January day at the Capitol a few years back when they requested assistance and assistance didn't come. This is the exact same thing, and it's a cover-up again. And another example, Sunday of convention week in Milwaukee. I know for a fact, because my friends were in the meeting, there was a 3-hour volunteer meeting for all of the different Hill staffers, GOP staffers, RNC, convention staffers. They had to come in and have a 3-hour meeting with Secret Service about how to understand the different color credentials for the week. To know that this color gets you to the green room, this color can get you this far. If there was a 3-hour intern meeting, a briefing, why was Secret Service not at the briefing the day before that could have, prevented the life of the person that was brutally murdered?
I mean, yeah, if they stopped that guy 3 hours before and said, hey, you can't come in, he'd be alive.
Exactly.
It is amazing to me because they're shifting. Immediately they were shifting blame to local law enforcement. Remember, Cheeto was like, well, we secure all kinds of stuff, except for that building. Local law enforcement was in charge of. Like, this has been sort of the narrative. And it's hard not to be like, why are you positioning yourself as being like this local Pennsylvania township police force failed, when actually you're also saying you're in charge of everything, and this is kind of unprecedented way for the Secret Service to behave.
Let's pull up this story. We've got this from sky.com. Donald Trump could have been hit by shrapnel during assassination attempt, FBI director says. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can look at the damage to his ears in 2 points, indicating it likely was sure, they're arguing the shrapnel went forward and then through. Where the
shrapnel from what?
From what? From what?
The teleprompters were
intact.
This is
really intact.
This is Christopher Wray pushing Democrat talking points.
Yes.
So that you can diminish, and I guarantee you right now, there are a bunch of Democrats going around saying he wasn't shot, something bounced up and hit him, so they can undermine the idea that someone nearly killed him and that he took a bullet for America.
Yeah. Joy Reid has been saying that. A bunch of the fringier Democrat pundits have been saying that. And of course, what they've been trying to do this whole week is just push Kamala Harris into the spotlight, make her seem like she's definitely the heir apparent. And I got to say, Democrats have done a really good job controlling this news cycle. And it's been hard to get other interesting stories out there. Trump had a great rally the other day. The one was in North Carolina. That was terrific. They're really trying to screw with J.D. Vance.
I mostly blame Republicans.
So weird.
Plus,
Republicans need to stop following the news cycle of the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And every so often, Republicans will set the news cycle. All that matters is they talk amongst themselves over what matters most. But the news cycle says Kamala, and then all of a sudden, tons of pundits stop talking about the Trump assassination attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely understand why there is a need to cover Kamala now, but I think it's obviously being pushed too heavily because they're trying to make something happen really fast.
There's a need to fact check her. There's a need to call out her lies.
I mean, it is news. It's just not the only thing going on. And again, that's why I think they are trying to quickly drum up enthusiasm for her, because I think if they don't get enough support, if they can't really convince people in the first, I would say 10 days, but let's go with 2 weeks, then you will see some Democrat come out and challenge her. I mean, what's his name? Golden from Maine came out today and said he doesn't plan to vote for her.
Well, they're trying to tie up all of the delegates before the convention in that virtual roll call thing, which wouldn't that make it?
Isn't it amazing how this is all going according to plan for them?
It's exactly what they wanted to do.
They stuck to the script,
How many months ago were we talking about, hey, Joe Biden's not on the ballot in Ohio, this makes no sense? Mm-hmm. Why would they do that? Oh, well, because the convention timing. So
it's like they did that on purpose.
So they announced they were going to do a virtual nomination that was just a formality so that they could get through in Ohio, and then they would nominate Biden. Just a coincidence that when he drops out, Kamala Harris, who needs this, is now able to get confirmed without a convention.
And all of the stories that we're talking about how Kamala Harris was going to have this happen, it says, the DNC said this was planned since May. No, it wasn't. It wasn't planned since, or it was. one or the other is true, and both of them are really bad.
They are.
You know what I mean?
Remember, this is the party of democracy.
Right.
This is the pro-democracy. They're gonna save democracy by ignoring the voters from the primary.
You guys saw Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer the other day giggling like little schoolgirls, who just killed their best friend in the woods. Super excited about how Kamala Harris is.
What is that analogy?
Haven't you heard about that?
To the Slender Man thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but I'd say it's just you're describing them.
Haven't you ever? Every time there's like a group of teens who kill their best friend in the woods.
I've never.
Which happens.
There's a case that was out in Morgantown, West Virginia, too, very similar.
But the Slender Man one, they were like best friends,
and they're happy.
They lured a girl out because they were nuts.
There's another one in Morgantown, West Virginia. It's a really sad
case. What are these girls doing?
Look, they're doing exactly what Jeffries and Schumer were doing, which is lying, making stuff up, and trying to push themselves into power. And they said that Kamala Harris, that she earned it.
Now that the process has played out,
that it was grassroots support, and it's so clearly a top-down, authoritarian, totalitarian, fascistic undertaking to install this woman as president without any people voting for her ever. She's had 0 votes. She couldn't even get votes in the primary in 2020. She had 3% of the vote before she dropped out because she had no support. All of her staff was saying that she was confusing and kept changing her policy positions, and nobody liked her. This woman is untested, she's unvetted, and she has absolutely no business being in this position, but they're just going to keep lying and saying that that she should be there.
I have never been so full of hate.
For Kamala Harris?
Yeah, I woke up
and
this morning.
the entire Democrat Party?
Yeah, because Joe Biden I dislike, but people voted for him in a primary. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't trust the primary process, but people advocated for it. They advocated for the voting for him, and then he wins the primary through their ridiculous superdelegate process. Now I'm sitting here being like, we know they steal it. We know they manipulate. But now they're just coming out and outright appointing someone who no one voted for. And then, Lord help me, you've got these liberal pundits being like, yay, democracy. And I'm just like, I have never been so full of hate in my life.
It is so infuriating. And the other thing, too, that I've noticed is you have this situation, too, where it's very hard to break through to the mainstream media, to the legacy press. Like, they have this all so wrapped up. And you saw this, too, at the RNC when you had in the Pfizer forum, you had all of the big legacy press. You had CNN and NBC and ABC and everyone doing their broadcasting from there. And Fox was there and Newsmax was there. But these were the guys who could pay the big money to have the big, big news programs there. And then all of the good media was relegated to the Panther Arena. Mm-hmm. And that was the good stuff. That was the stuff that should be streaming this. And I understand that the RNC has to make money or whatever, but put the Daily Wire in the Pfizer. Put Timcast in the Pfizer. Put Human Events Daily in the Pfizer. War Room
was in the Panther Building.
Put it in the Pfizer. That's where these people should be. That's where these pundits should be. Why is Charlie Kirk broadcasting from outside? He should be broadcasting live from the RNC.
They should have had one AP pool camera.
Yes.
Pointing at everything.
That's all you need.
That's it. And then you give the actual press and podcasts and personalities the real space inside.
The real space inside. Because that's who the people of the RNC, that's who the delegates watch. And that's how you break through this legacy media bubble. So you ended up with a situation where all of these people, who on CNN, who believe that they are the voice of the people, they believe that they are the real press, they were able to maintain their bubble, and they had no business maintaining that bubble. It should have been popped. Well, and now we're out here, they're installing Kamala Harris. We can't break through it. And they didn't help us.
This is what I mean? So I was actually asked this when we went to the RNC. They were like, some of our guests found out we weren't actually in the secure perimeter. We were outside because there's no way. Well, it's impossible. We're doing a live audience, right? Yeah. So we couldn't we couldn't do that show. And then the other issue was getting enough passes for everybody. I don't know how we got passes, but shout out to whoever got us passes because I did have them.
Oh, I helped Nancy get you guys passes.
Oh, okay, well, thank you very much because they were just like, Tim, your passes are here. And I was like, they are? Because we weren't planning on going actually inside the perimeter.
Yeah.
We were going to be there for the ancillary, the outside events. There's things going on all over the place. But when I was there, I got asked multiple times by many of the people, where inside is the show going to be? And I said, we're not. And they were like, you wait.
You're not?
Exactly.
They were like, didn't the RNC bring you guys out to do a show here? And I was like, no. People actually thought that the RNC gave us space and said, we want Timcast IRL at the RNC. It makes a lot of sense. I was like, no, of course not. We had no communication.
And then you look at the viewers, the view count of these alternative media, and it's breaking through CNN and MSNBC, these other places. Yeah, and then also our party's constantly like, oh, we need to embrace alternative media. Let's modernize. Let's do that. And then you have the opportunity for like the biggest week, and you don't do that, which is so sad.
And it was really fascinating, like to be there at the RNC. I had never been to a political convention before, and it was really so interesting. And I thought, why? When I turn on the TV, are the main players the same people who have been lying to us for the whole rest of the year?
The DNC is going to be nuts. We saw those riots in D.C.
That time
we have a reporter heading out to cover the protests.
Oh.
We can't get into the convention, but
was it Biden with Netanyahu earlier?
Yes. You had Biden,
when he said something like from one proud Zionist to another or something like that. I can't remember exactly. He said something like that, right?
He said something like an Irish Zionist.
Yes,
or something like
yes,
that.
to a Jew. Yep. And then,
that's really great. Yay, IRA.
But then you've got Kamala, who came out and said that she was raising money for Israel as a little girl. And do you think these far leftists are going to sit by and be like, no, it's fine?
Tim, I remember what she was raising money for, and it was the bail to get those people out that were previously protesting.
And I saw the same people who are going to go throw firebombs at
the exact same people. And I thought something, sorry.
And some of those people are killers.
They are. That's what I was going to say. I saw that yesterday. I didn't realize, that tweet that we keep pulling up where she was doing the bail? That link still works. A reporter yesterday did a test thing for $10 just to see, and it still works. That's crazy.
No, that's been up. We were reporting on that at the Post Millennial in 2020. Andy No was all over that.
Yeah.
And we were shocked then, and she still stands behind it.
That's crazy. Out of all the things people have scrubbed from their Twitter, she is standing by that.
Why should she scrub it? She
proud
needs
of it.
the far left.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to look for confirmation of this right now, but if I'm not wrong, her stepdaughter has pushed a lot of pro-Palestine fundraisers. Yeah. So there's a level of like Kamala Harris is about to try and be on every side of every issue.
How old is the stepdaughter?
She's in her early 20s. I think she might be 25
they
max.
push this whole thing that she's the stepmom and she's the mamala and everything. She got married 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think both of her kids are in their, or like her stepkids are in their 20s.
So she was around, during their teen years for a little bit?
Mamala.
Yeah, and she will bring out these narratives.
She got married when she was 49. And before that, what was she doing? Like sleeping her way into California politics.
Well, look, she's a feminist. She's trying to make her life work. No, but the thing is, Kamala Harris is about to try to be on every side of a lot of issues, right? Like she was touring abortion clinics, but she's going to come out and say, well, I'm for women and they're bad. She's going to say, oh, well, I'm the tough on crime prosecutor and I can tell Donald Trump what to do. Here you go, Black Lives Matter rioters. I mean, it's just going to be everything. And I think that's
like the Obama thing where he kept telling every group exactly what they wanted to hear and every group believed him.
That was great.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I don't remember the anti-war people.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my anti-war theater friends, and they were like, no, he's anti-war. And I was like, but he just said that he wants to boost troops in Afghanistan. Yep. He's pro-gay marriage. No, he isn't, you guys. He is just a liar.
But I don't think people believe Kamala Harris the same way they believe Barack Obama.
Did you see
they might
that they're saying Kamala is the most liberal member of Congress or the Senate?
Yeah, from that GovTrack thing.
Yeah, but this has been a talking point for a long time, and it's technically true, but you need to understand the context. It's that she doesn't engage in any deal making. So all of the bills she signs on to.
That's great for a possible future president.
Absolutely.
No deal making.
Bernie Sanders is the furthest left politician we probably have, other than AOC maybe.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he used to be, but now he's like number 4. But the reason they don't say he's the most liberal is because he negotiates with conservatives, and you'll find him on bills that are slightly moderate because he says to them, I'll vote for you if you vote for me. Kamala does not do that.
Wow.
But did you see she was interviewed, and she was asked about this. You're called the most liberal. I'm watching, and I'm like, she's Dr. Hibbert. She's Dr. Hibbert from The Simpsons. They go, you.
With the laugh.
Right. He says, you've been criticized as the most liberal member of Congress. And this had appeared on a website. And she goes, I'm like, why are you laughing?
You want 4 years of that? Come on, people.
Oh, heaven help me.
And she didn't deny it.
Should just give
there
her
was
a
no
little
denying.
Venn diagram of her liberal policies, right?
With a yellow school bus.
Right, there you go.
This is an interesting question I have for you, Brilyn.
Solar yellow.
Yes.
Because Simpsons certainly still does exist, but do you understand the Dr. Hibbert reference?
I don't know.
Dr. Hibbert, because I don't know if he's still on the show anymore because the show's so old.
Yeah.
But he laughs inappropriately.
Oh, okay.
And so this is in the 90s. Yeah, he walks in and he's like, "You've got cancer." That's Kamala Harris.
Oh, it is.
It's you ask her a simple question like, "What's your tax policy?" What?
It exists within the context of which it exists in. Like,
Yeah, why are you laughing?
I think that is a direct quote.
That's a direct quote. Yeah,
That's
which
her
is
famous
so
one.
unfortunate, but
It should exist in the context of what it should exist in.
It does. Hey, I just found this article about the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which is the group that she obviously was supporting with the bail money. Here are just a few examples. I won't read them all. In April of 2022, a guy named Sean Michael Tillman was released thanks to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. 1 month later, he shot a man 6 times.
That's right.
Wow.
Okay?
Thanks, Kamala.
George Howard was in jail for domestic assault in August 2021. In August 2021, he was bailed out by the Minnesota Freedom Fund. 18 days later, he shot and killed a man in a fit of road rage. One more, Christopher Boswell, twice convicted rapist. He got out thanks to the Minnesota Freedom Fund that Kamala Harris is still raising money for as a city vice president. He promptly strangled another woman the same day and said he would do something to her.
I kind of feel like conservatives want to sit on their porch in a rocking chair, sipping on some lemonade while their kids, play in the grass with like soccer ball or something, and then they want to, just get the work done, come home, see their family, and it feels like liberals just want to party and have things paid for them. Look, man, there's way too many millennial liberal types who are like, I don't want work. And there's way too many conservatives who are like, what another good hard day of work. I'm just like, it's becoming this polarized.
Oh, it is. What a stark contrast, too. I mean, that's like the generation that's coming up and they're like expecting that of like, I'm just going to sit there and everything's going to be paid for me. They're going to bribe my vote every time. I'll vote for whoever cancels my student debt or pays for my housing.
But you're a part of this generation, right? I mean, is this how you feel? Because I have the perception that it's divided.
Let's pull this story up first before we get into that. We've got this from Axios. Exclusive poll. Oh, we trust Axios. Harris opens up early edge with young voters. Take a look at this. If the 2024 election were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Biden or Trump? 53% for Biden. If the elections were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Kamala Harris, Trump? And Kamala's got 60%. Okay, now you're a young conservative man. I don't think that you represent all of Gen Z, but what are you seeing?
Well, I don't represent all of Gen Z, but I've been fortunate enough to talk to a lot of Gen Z. And I've constantly seen both sides of the aisle, people are frustrated, regardless of if you're even like, okay, I'm abnormal and, my age. Most 18-year-olds aren't politically interested or involved. But even ones that aren't interested or involved, they're affected by this. Like I'll say last week in Milwaukee, every single Uber driver I had was a college student taking a second or third job to make ends meet.
Really?
And a lot of them were like, I disagree with the MAGA hat you have on, but like, the economy was better with him. And I was like, it was, right? Like, it definitely was.
You didn't have to have 2 jobs.
Exactly. Yeah, which is so sad. So I think that this is BS, and I absolutely think that this is something that, we're seeing come back against.
So for you, is it like, 2019 was a hot year. 2020 was pretty bad. So you're young.
Sure.
And I have to imagine, like, with your family, you're going out to eat more, you're going to the movies more. Yeah. When you were getting older, into the Biden administration, where you notice these things with your family where your parents are like, we can't afford to do it. Yeah. We got to tighten our belts.
Well, then I'm going into college, after this next school year. You remember graduating from high school, renting your first apartment, like becoming financially independent, actually going into the age of like attempting to, go on road trips with your friends, just go out and eat dinner with your friends, like very simple things that you should be able to do as a freedom-loving American, and you can't do because, and again, it's constantly in the news that the economy is bad, and it's hard enough for my parents and grandparents' generation. Picture how difficult it is for my generation getting a start in this economy.
Well, if it makes you feel better, millennials had the 2008 crash.
There you go.
So how old? I was 20.
Okay.
As we went into that.
Yeah.
And
That's right, when I finished grad school, and I was like, oh, goody.
I tried to get a job as a dishwasher, and I could not because good luck finding a job. Everybody needed one. Mm-hmm. The people who are slightly older got laid off from their jobs, so they started dipping lower and lower into lower tier jobs. And then I'm like, but I played guitar on the subway. I made it work.
It worked.
And then millennials got to experience a second, and fortunately, Gen Z got to experience their first.
Yes.
Although I think Gen Z was actually around for the first one too, just not experience it in the same way.
Yes. Their parents experienced
I was 2,
it,
so yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel about the 2008 crash because I was in middle school at the time, and I think there were a lot of there is the tension in the household, even if you're not super engaged, you're at an age where you're becoming aware, and you know that ultimately these are consequences that will affect your family. I mean, I know a lot of people whose parents couldn't help them pay for college because of the 2008 crash, or they had to move from where they live because they had to sell their house because they couldn't afford anymore. I mean, people remember the effects of challenging economic times, even if they themselves are not part of the tax base yet.
Yeah, I had, I think, 4 part-time jobs.
Wow.
And that was That was like how I was doing stuff, and I was doing my art and stuff. So,
well, here's a non-economy example. I mean, I know the numbers on the screen, and this is Axios again. Like Tim said, we can't really trust them. These are some people telling us that Kamala's not really the borders are, but the numbers on the screen actually are better for Trump than 16 and 20. And I think a big part of that is my generation. You said you were in middle school for recessions and stuff. I was in middle school when COVID hit. And that really radicalized my generation to being like, wow, big government is bad. Like, COVID was big government at its worst. Big government during COVID shut me out of school for a year and a half, told me I was an evil, horrible human being if I went and visited grandma for Thanksgiving dinner, that I had to strap a diaper to my face anytime I walked outside. I could pull it up to eat, but that was fine. We really was like, oh, wait, hold on. This is kind of crazy. And I remember so many people in my class, none of this makes sense. And like, I'm from Alabama, like, majority of my class was conservative, but I had people during then, like, we're on, Zoom chats and stuff for class. And they're like, this is a little crazy that I can't go to church, but the strip club down the street is open.
Yeah.
And these are people that their parents voted for Biden, at that point they would be voting for Biden this go around. And they're like, wait. Why do we want big government? And I'm like, exactly. Small government's great. And so I think the polling is better because of that. I think COVID helped us by radicalizing it.
But I think you're going to have to pony up and admit it. Kamala Harris is memeing with Gen Z, and Gen Z is with it. They take one look at that face, and they're like, that's cool.
Let's say this isn't Kamala. This is some staffer, some intern that's in their sophomore year of college somewhere that just found out what Brad is. Kamala doesn't even know she probably has a TikTok account. She has no idea. I will say this, and I've told Trump this to his face. He is the ultimate influencer. He got started in politics from influencing through Twitter in 2015 when no politician was using Twitter. They were still using press releases and stuff like that. And he was like, I'm going to try this. And it worked. And so him and I had a conversation a few months ago. He was waving his hands in the air. He was like, Brilyn, what can we do to win Gen Z? And I said, Mr. President, it's simple. Like, go to mainstream social media platforms. True Social is great, but my generation is not on True Social. You're talking to an echo chamber. You have to go to places where young people are. And so he rejoined Instagram a week or two after that. And since then he's on TikTok. He has the fastest growing TikTok account in TikTok history. Mm-hmm. I promise you, we can revisit this next week. Kamala Harris will not beat his numbers because it's young people who are like, wait, he's authentic. Like when Biden started his TikTok, you remember this, he pulled up the screen, he's like, good morning, Gen Z, pause. I'm so happy to be on your For You page, pause. And Trump's on there and he's a selfie video with Logan Paul. And he's like, hey guys, what's up? Glad to be on TikTok, vote for me. Like it's just authentic.
Well, and he's making like YouTube content, like he was doing that golf video the other day. I mean, there is an element of like, he is just being himself and it's working. Absolutely. Whereas I feel like you're in a better position to comment on this than I am, but I feel like this is Gen Z or maybe very, very young, like tail end of millennial staffers trying to cram Kamala Harris in front of youth voters the only way they think they can and trying to make her relevant. Like you have all seen videos where people teach their like 98-year-old grandmas current day slang, right?
That's
and they'll say it and like she says cap and you're sort of like, that's so weird and awkward. It's kind of funny. Like it's not authentic. In fact, they're just kind of laughing at her because she seems almost out of place.
It's only been a few days since she obviously is top of the ticket now, but just in these short amount of days, what I've constantly heard from young people is, and this is both sides of the aisle, is we're tired of chaos. And we've constantly seen chaos with the left. We saw chaos with them. They didn't have a nominee till like 2 days ago. They still don't have a VP nominee. We're the party of stability. And it's very easy to say, listen, in this election, it's unique. Typically, you have two untested people coming, running for office, and you don't know what a term of either one of them would look like. You know exactly what a Donald Trump administration would look like, and you know exactly what a Kamala Harris administration would look like. So it's very easy to sit down with an 18-year-old who's, in high school like me and say, listen, do you want stability or do you want chaos? Clearly, Kamala's a chaos president.
They're trying to Obama Kamala,
They are.
and you can't. And
they're trying to Obama Kamala.
No, Obama has got charisma. Obama knows how to stand on a stage.
That'll be a thing.
Let's compare Obama to Ron DeSantis in terms of charisma. And with all due respect to Ron, who's done some good things with his career, we talked about this when Ron was announcing his candidacy. He's on X Space going, I'm here to lead the great American comeback.
The smile was the worst.
I'm like, wow. Barack Obama's on stage in front of thousands of people in Chicago with a scowl, and he's like, "We are going to lead America to freedom," like just something like that. And everyone's screaming and cheering, and he's shaking his fist. That guy knows how to rally a crowd.
Sure.
And so I can understand back in the day. I remember when he was running, he was the celebrity candidate. He was the cool guy. And they played that up, and it did work with young people. Not that like young people turn out in massive numbers anyway, but it did work to a greater degree than usual. You can't do that with Kamala.
No.
She is a cackling fiend. That's what she is.
What is she going to say? Like, you fell out of a coconut tree. Like, what's her thing going to be? It's not, yes, we can.
That's what it is.
Thing. I mean, that's all it is.
Playday.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It doesn't make
He say, what did Podwis? Is that what Jill Biden said?
Quotas?
It was, Podway. Remember, Jill Biden said, "See, say Podway" or whatever.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
They should stop trying to make politicians that don't speak Spanish at all speak Spanish.
I know, it's
feel
What a crazy
everyone-
concept.
when that
Yeah.
happened.
I know I'm being radical here, but I just feel like everyone would appreciate it. I think Kamala is struggling with this image, right? That's why it is rapidly evolving. Like they're trying to make her both memeable and this prosecutor who's going to take on Trump, and then she's going to, pivot to being, I don't know, a TikTok date. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Podway. They took the video down.
They took it down?
Of course they did.
Yeah, of course. They can't let you do that.
Somebody said this earlier. Don't you think Kamala would be a really great daytime talk show host? She could sit there. Well, she could laugh and talk, but she can't run. Like I don't know what part of me is like she could sit in the Oval Office or the Situation Room and be like, "We're going to make this decision." She's gonna be like, "Ah, that's hilarious."
No, I don't think so because if she was a daytime talk show host, she'd be sitting down next to a guy and he'd be like, "I have cancer," and she'd go.
The best thing that happened for Kamala Harris's image during the 2020 campaign was that Maya Rudolph played her on SNL and actually made her sort of funny and not charming, but made her into almost a likable character. Like bizarre, you don't relate to her, but there was something there. The real Kamala does not even hold a candle to that, and that's a bad sign for a campaign that's now trying to rapidly throw this together, basically before the election because they know they're going to secure the
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
This is really bad.
I'm just living that life on Dutch Coke.
This is pretty bad. Like, I don't know. They've made better ones of Biden and stuff.
That video is made for me, my generation, and no part of that was like, I'm voting for her. I'm like, get her away from me.
The hard thing though is that you were apparently dyed in the wool conservative over there. So we need to ask the Democrats and independents.
I would love Harry Sissem's take.
Yeah, I would.
I know he's bought and paid, but
yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry. You want to see funny? I'll show you this.
I've been trying to fall. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe.
There was a whole channel on YouTube of Trump singing pop songs,
and they would
like
do them
this.
for Obama too. I mean, they're funny,
right? Oh, I should. What's a good Obama song?
He did "Call Me Maybe." That was the first one I ever saw, and it was just so funny. I don't. The other thing is, and you talked about this. Trump was an original influencer.
Yes.
He made stuff
50
happen.
million views.
Really?
I'm sorry. Just let me. Yeah, here we go.
12 years ago.
I love you back. Well, don't ask me, I'll never tell. I look to you as it felt, and now you're in my way. I trade my soul.
It's not even that good, and it's got 50 million views. I mean, that was early day stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Trump singing "Blinding Lights" is it's actually really good. Let me. Here we go.
I'm blinded by the lights. I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, oh, I'm drowning in the night.
So yeah.
That was 3 years ago.
No, this
art form
is not the original video. This is someone
I was gonna say this
reposting
art
it.
form has evolved over the years.
Yeah, it's What's the guy's name? I got to get his name to give him credit. It's he put it in the video. Where is it? Maestro Zikos. Credit to him.
I think Trump has an influence on culture that Kamala Harris couldn't, right? She just doesn't have it. If she did, she would have done better in the primary. Someone would have discovered her by now. It's not like she has been in the public eye for a long time. And I think this is something that I really credit Gen Z for. I think they can sniff out frauds, right?
She does.
You can't
seem like a
make
real
them
fraud.
like people.
Yeah, she
No,
does.
she
seem
does.
super fake. And yeah, if she had any draw,
Wouldn't we
she
have it
would
by
have
now?
drawn it by now.
Like she already ran for president and it didn't go well.
No.
And she actually got shuffled, in my opinion, she got shuffled right to the back of the Biden administration in early days. So
I love this one, though. This is Ryan James Gerdusky. He says, this is how Democrats think about their fellow Americans and how they select a vice president. Quote, let's just face it. There's a lot of sexist, racist white dudes out there in America who don't like Trump, but just need a little extra validation. one person familiar with the campaign's thinking told NBC News. And bringing one of the people mentioned onto the ticket helps validate her among those constituents.
What a wild
Apparently,
statement.
her entire VP shortlist is just white guys.
But it's also a random person we don't know. They've not quoted anybody, and this person is psychic and understands what Kamala's campaign is thinking. I'm sorry, dude. I'm not interested in whatever that is.
But they've normalized that whole one person familiar, one source.
It's crazy.
Look, what they do is they will say something like, a source close to Donald Trump's office said he was planning on kicking a dog. And that source close to his office is the homeless guy who's in the alley close to the building. And they're like, but we're telling the truth.
Who has a dog? The homeless guy has a dog, and he's kicking it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, they use these manipulative phrases. One person familiar with the campaign's thinking. I'm familiar with the campaign's thinking, and I think Kamala wants to kick a dog.
I think probably
Reported
Kamala already
NBC News.
did kick a dog.
To your point about the 2020 primaries, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if you remember, it was down to Biden and Bernie. And remember that last CNN?
They forced him out.
They did. They forced him out.
Yeah.
It wasn't Kamala on the stage. She had been gone well. But remember, Tulsi got her to leave after that,
After she
horrible
destroyed,
debate.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard destroyed Kamala Harris.
Yes, and then to your point about the influencers and Trump understanding that, he really, it's not something we have to convince him. It was like, we were talking about the convention, the idea that I pitched last year when Ronna McDaniel was still in charge and didn't get anywhere, and then Whatley actually took it on, and we did it because Trump actually let us do it. He let us spearhead it. We flew up 100 influencers to the convention last week, and they had a suite on the top floor, and they got to sit and cover the convention. Had hundreds of millions of views. Trump let us do that. That's something in the past.
Smart.
RNC was like, how they, we're not going to go there. We're not going to touch that.
Was that like the Creators Hub?
It was the Creator Hub. Yes.
I was doing that too.
Yeah.
I
Oh, well,
didn't
there you
see
go.
in there.
Yeah. It was really cool for him to get. And again, it was an immediate. I pitched to Whatley. Whatley was like, "Let me check with Trump."
That was your idea?
It was mine. Yeah.
Very clever, Brilyn.
He called
That's
back
really
maybe 30 minutes later. Trump loves it. How quick can we get it?
Because what's like I got invited to like apply for credentials for the creator thing, and my friends in press did not have floor access, but I did have floor access.
You get to go down for your 30 minutes.
Yeah,
That was
was
there you
cool.
go.
And it was very cool. It was actually.
Did you go up to the suite too?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Food
When
and
I met,
everything? Good.
I did some work up there.
He's
When
like
I met
making
Trump.
sure you had a good time.
Yes,
because
I'm
of
like,
that.
yeah,
I'm feeling
customer
like-
service
Did
over
you get
here.
enough
Better about
water?
it
Now.
I'll send you a survey later.
When I
We're doing it again in
met,
4 years. So.
When I met Trump for the first time at Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah.
it was Brucewitz who introduced me to him.
Oh, yeah.
And then he was like, Brucewitz was like, Tim's got one of the biggest channels on YouTube. And then immediately Trump goes, you know who the biggest influencer in the world is? And I went, Joe Rogan. And then he was like, me. That's what they say. They say it's me. And I was like, you're right. And I was like, oh,
That's a good impression.
Your impression.
I like the impression.
Did you do it?
to him, no. But I was like, actually, yeah, he's probably right. He posts one thing and the entire media apparatus is just like on it.
Right, it's like pigeons in Central Park when you throw out half a stale bagel, and they go nuts.
I was with Sarah Sanders last week one day around lunch, and we were talking, just kind of reminiscing of White House days. And she was like, yeah, I never had to send out these press releases. They have to speak on Biden's behalf. She was like, Trump would do the talking, and I would just go defend him. He would just tweet it. Yep. That was the news for the day. Immediately, he would sit there and watch the Chiron trains, sipping a Diet Coke. So also for the impressions, the amount of times that I've seen people walk up to him and do an impression in front of him is wild. They have so much courage to do that. And he always loves it. You know how he is. But you need to do it next time.
No, I don't know. I wouldn't do that. Let's check out this story. As we're talking about how could Kamala Harris possibly win, from SCNR, nearly 2/3 of voters believe cheating will occur in the 2024 election. More than a quarter admit they would consider engaging in illegal voting to help their preferred presidential candidate. Okay, I mean, that's the news, right? What would you call it if a quarter of the nation is openly saying that they will or want to cheat to win power? Is that just the way things are?
It's in a sad set of affairs. That's criminal actions there. And also 2/3, that's they'll say that Republicans have believe this, quote unquote brainwashed lie. But 2/3 is well more than just Republicans that think that we don't have fair and free elections. Right. So the party of democracy really needs to step up on securing this election here. I mean, come on.
Well, the Democrats make this claim. It's the weirdest thing, too. Like when I'm talking to like a liberal family member, and they say, yeah, well, Republicans are just trying to stop people from voting. And I go, who? And they're like, well, they're trying to get people off the voter rolls. And I was like,
dead people? What are you talking about?
Who are they getting off the voter rolls? It's like, well, they go through and they remove names. And I'm like, can't you just go and register to vote? Like, shouldn't you just check your registration periodically?
Let me say this. They try to say it's difficult to vote. I turned 18 2.5 weeks ago, and I registered on my 18th birthday. I timed it. 1 minute and 42 seconds.
Yeah, it's not.
A minute
it's
and
not hard.
42. Yeah, and also there was just one box to check if I was a U.S. citizen. No proof that I was a U.S. citizen. They didn't ask for birth certificate, anything. I literally checked the box. So that needs to be addressed. But also, a minute 42 seconds. They're always like, oh, it's so difficult. They're trying to make it so hard. No.
It wasn't hard when I registered in whatever it was, 1993.
Yeah.
They registered for me, and then I got jury duty.
Oh, wow.
Maybe
Yeah,
it
when
was
I got my
94.
ID, it just registered me.
Oh, wow.
I guess it's like on the form or something. It's like when you're getting your license, it's like you're registered
you
now.
can register at the DMV in a lot of
Don't you
states.
guys have to register for selective service too?
Yes,
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to do that too. It's a whole form. So, which again, this is a cool story. I was back home for a night or two, and it was around my birthday. I had a birthday party. I was sitting there registering to vote, and one of my friends had turned 18 around the same time, and you could tell the wheels were turning in his head. He goes, "Wait, I have to selective service too, right?" And this is a guy that is not the biggest Trump supporter. I'll just say that. And I was like, "Yeah, you actually have to. Like, I'll send you the link. Like, it's pretty simple. Blah blah blah." And he goes, "I could actually serve on the front lines." I was like, "I mean, that's what that means." He was like, "No, like Biden, like." If anybody were to see me on the front lines, it would be him. And I was like, you have a good point. So again, this is somebody that his whole life is football. He plays Fortnite every night.
I
like
love
he's
that
not
recognition.
focused. Yeah, but it clicked.
Like,
I didn't have
that's
to
the
tell him.
war guy.
Yeah, and he was like,
Oh,
he's
dude.
the war guy.
Yeah, but come on, like deep down, we're all excited to see Harry Sisson on the front line.
Oh my goodness.
He would be doing
It'd
amazing
mess up his
propaganda.
hair.
Maybe
How
that
would he
was
keep
part of his
hair
agreement.
safe?
Maybe it was if he tweets this entire time, they put him,
People of privilege
He's gonna-
sometimes
yes.
get to go
No,
to do special positions.
It's going to be
put him in the
Tom
USO.
Cruise and Edge of Tomorrow. He's going to be like, look, I'm just an Instagram guy. And they're like, that's why we need you on
he's
the
a
front
press
line.
pass.
We need you on the front line to sell this war to the American people because they trust you. And he's going to be like, oh, crap.
Well, I'm sure he'd be happy to serve under, President Kamala Harris. He's a huge fan, I've heard.
Hey, it took him 7 minutes to endorse her, to turn his back on
Right.
Biden. 7 minutes. He put out one post and was like, Biden's the defender of democracy. And then the next post, he was like, all hell Kamala Harris. 7 minutes. So the check hit very fast from the Kamala Harris for
Wow.
president campaign.
Yeah.
What a grifter.
Really.
I have to just believe that Gen Z doesn't care at all. Of course, there's a handful of people. You're here, obviously. You wrote a book, even, and you seem to know a lot about what's going on. You're very active, but most Gen Z is probably just like, huh?
I agree with you to an extent, but I would say this. Unfortunately, we're being forced to care. Like, we're being thrown into this thing of we're trying to stay apolitical and we're trying to stay away from it. And it keeps hitting us, whether it's the pocketbooks or like in life or realizing like, hey, next year I could be, serving on the front lines of a war. It's really forcing us to say, even if you don't support either side, at least pay attention. And I think we're seeing that. That's why we're seeing so many young people register to vote, which is going to be a major shift this time. Like 53% of registered voters as of last week are Gen Z or millennials. That has
I was 18
And
million.
unregistered
Yeah.
voters skew Trump,
yes.
Republican.
Yes, big time.
I was just going to say, when I was 18, the only things I cared about were art and parties.
No, I was voting.
I
When I-
voted for, like, in the whatever it was, but no,
I voted for
didn't care.
Obama. So
I voted for Bill Clinton. So
I wasn't old enough to vote for Bill Clinton, but I remember when I was little, they had us do a mock poll of like when I was in
I had to
grade
do that.
school.
Yeah.
They were, and it's really about they're doing the poll to see what your parents
Yes.
influencing it on you.
Yes.
But I remember, I think I don't know how old I must have been 20. I voted for Obama, and I was like, well, I hope he ends the wars. Beep. And then as soon as he gets elected, he's like, I'm gonna go blow up kids, and I was like, ah, crap.
I remember being totally committed to be like, my first vote's going to be for a libertarian president. That was not the case. The thing is, I think you're touching on something that's really important, which is like young people are kind of forced to pay attention. In part, I think because our media has realized how fear-mongering people and scaring them about politics all the time, keeping that like anxious attention is working for their bottom line. But I also think that like this is a different culture. I think our culture is much more politically oriented than generations past, to our detriment. Like Libby is saying, when she was young, she was focused on art and parties, but that's kind of cool,
That's
right?
normal,
Like
yeah.
you were
There's nothing
supposed to
wrong with
have
that.
life outside. I mean, maybe not you. You've picked a path, but like it is good to have institutions of culture that people are passionate about, that they want to pour into, so we have a vibrant culture in this country. If it has to be constantly fighting over like, please don't send me to war, please let me, be able to have a secure financial future, then of course you have to kind of fall in line on these party politics, at least in the American system as is.
No, my friend shouldn't have to be stressing about serving on the front lines next year instead of going off to college, which is just a crazy concept to fret over. To your point about the mock elections, that was actually what got me interested in politics. So the clip that I love, and I know it's one of your favorites, is when Trump and Hillary were debating. I was 11 and happened to be walking through the living room at the same time when he said the line, "Well, you'd be in jail."
Yeah, amazing.
And I was like, oh, I love this. Like, this guy is not reading the consultant like memos. Like, this is real. This is genuine. Like, he's authentic. And so started paying attention. And I was SJ president of our lower school at the time, and we held a mock election in the library, and like Trump won wide margins against Alabama, who shocked. But I was like, this is so cool. Like they're like actually casting their vote. And so somehow that turned into this. But again, it's just young people paying attention. And it was a clip. I mean, that was a 15-second clip of Trump, but it brought me into a 7-year career.
Wow. Now, nobody trusts the election, and the expectation is just that it's going to be a bunch of cheaters cheating. So and we've been saying this for 3 years. We've been saying this since January 6th. What will happen after this election? Why would the Democrats or the Republicans accept the results? And assuming they don't, then what happens afterwards?
Great question that nobody's talking about because everybody's too afraid to.
And well, it's not just that. It's like, does anybody know?
Nobody
we don't.
knows.
We have no idea.
No.
Well, it depends on I guess in part what the leaders do, right?
Well, we don't know who our leader is.
I
right
mean,
now.
Kamala Harris, if she's the one who loses out or whatever, she's the same one who said that the protesters should not stop and the rioting should not stop in 2020. She said that on late night TV. Trump has been looking incredibly presidential. I mean, in a way that he didn't even in 2020. He's maintained his calm. He's very cool and collected. It's been sort of impressive to watch that. So kind of depends, I think.
Yeah.
But I have no idea.
It's really hard to say, and I think that's one of the things that I feel wary about with speculating, because you don't want anyone to start to panic too early. Sure. I think there was
you don't want to panic too early.
There's plenty of time for panic. Don't worry about
Later.
it. But
don't forget your towel.
The thing is, I really think that the DNC is in a certain amount of chaos, and I think that the next couple weeks leading up to this roll call will be fascinating. I suspect they'll be able to install Kamala Harris, but I don't think it will do them any favors with their party, with their members in Congress or anything else. So
BLM doesn't like it.
Right.
Which is so interesting to me. That's like fascinating.
In the past couple of weeks, I agreed once with Taylor Lorenz and once with BLM. The world is over. It's
was it the Blueanon article she wrote?
I think so, yeah.
No, but I mean, look what's going to happen to the DNC. The far left is going to lose it, and they're going to try and storm the gates, and they're going to attack the DNC.
To your point about the protest earlier and Kamala's quote, back in that election, our leader, our nominee got shot in the head, and we didn't have a single protest. Like, not a single one. Like,
right, we're the ones, and they tell us that we're going to go riot and blow things up, and we're just like,
he literally got shot in the head.
Let's have our convention and a proper nominating process.
And then yesterday in D.C., they rioted, stole a flag, and torched it and destroyed it
on government property.
Right?
Didn't they raise Palestinian flags?
Yes.
In our nation's capital.
Yes.
And where's our police?
Yeah.
Pretty funded.
They were just hanging out.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of the centrist Democrats, let's say, who joined to vote against or vote in favor of this resolution to condemn Biden and Harris for the border crisis. I mean, I think you're starting to see a fracturing in a way that they are not prepared to handle. Yes, there was an immediate coalesce around Kamala Harris, but long term, the party is forever damaged by, I would say the entire Biden administration, but definitely since January when he was like, I'm definitely running and everything's fine.
It's a cult, man. Let me tell you this. You had a primary. Ron DeSantis supporters were ripping apart Trump supporters. Haley's supporters were ripping apart DeSantis and Trump supporters. Vivek Ramaswamy had people who were very amicable and liked Donald Trump, but were hoping that Vivek could get in. You had DeSantis supporters on X saying, F you, Trump supporters, I will never vote for this man. And then a few weeks later being like, you've won. I admit it. I'm going to have to vote for this guy and I don't want to. And they're like, he's in a cult. And I'm like, the dude hates Trump.
Yeah.
You're a cult. And you are marching in lockstep on authoritarians who have now put in Kamala Harris without a single person voting for her. And this guy's like, well, I don't like Trump, but at least people voted for him. And you're like, he's in a cult. This is what we're up against right now in this country in our election.
Cult behavior was that 12-hour period where every single Democrat somehow got behind her that quickly.
So fast.
Easy.
And then started making stuff up about how she was the grassroots candidate.
Just crazy.
She's been grassroots for 6 hours. I thought it was crazy when Schumer was like, well, the process has played out. Sir, it has been maybe 48 hours. This is your process?
Well, and that's the thing, too. It's like people are saying, Obama hasn't endorsed Kamala. All Obama has to do is endorse the process.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Let's pull this up from the New York Post. Badly understaffed park police assaulted by mob of thousands pelted with poop. at pro-Hamas riot in D.C. Union Chief. Vote for Kamala if you want people throwing poop at cops.
That is horrifyingly disgusting.
They had to. They like
What about
deputized
E.
all the New
coli?
York cops. I mean, it's so fun that this battle between foreign nations is playing out on American soil. Really love that for us.
This is what the left does. Meanwhile, they're saying that there's one video I watched where a guy's like, what do you think happens if Trump wins, or do you want Trump to win? The lady's like, well, if Biden wins, the Proud Boys are going to come out and start shooting people. And he's like, the Proud Boys? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, do you think that all of these people are Proud Boys? She's like, no, but they'll come out. The left is doing it right now. They've been doing it for years. There's not a Proud Boy in sight.
There's not. I talked to Tommy Tuberville yesterday, who's my Alabama U.S. Senator, former football coach, and his Capitol office faces the direction of Union Station. And they texted me a picture of these Palestinian flags being raised, and you can see it from Capitol Hill. Sitting in the U.S. Capitol as a sitting United States Senator, watching the Palestinian flags being raised, and they could do nothing about it. That's so sad.
But it's not an act of terror.
It's not. No, not at all.
But I mean, in Congress itself, what was it, last year or the year before, you had Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris raising the Ukrainian flag in Congress.
But we're not occupied. It's not a hostile
Not at all.
takeover.
No.
Don't question anything, Libby.
Did you see how Zelensky was like, I'd be very happy to work with Trump.
I know.
And we should probably look for some peace. Yeah, let's do that.
He's for sure.
Real
he says
quick.
Now.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu's going to go down and meet with Trump. I mean, we've also had world leaders from across the world already lining up to meet with Trump. I mean, Viktor Orban met with him. This is
Polish president.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're looking at it. There is clearly someone who the world is like, maybe you guys should put him in because things seem to be not great for you the way it is.
actual grown-ups in charge instead of ones who are letting their brains drip out their ears.
Well, picture from Netanyahu's perspective. I don't know how far the trip is from Israel, but it's quite a long trip. Made it all the way here. He gets here and he landed yesterday morning. Nobody greeted him at the airport. Nobody greeted him at Joint Base Andrews. Not Kamala, not Biden. Neither wanted to be seen. Biden
They didn't
was in the
even
basement
send
somewhere.
like Card or the Maryland guy who's retiring.
Exactly.
In the chair.
Nothing at all. No, he gets here and they asked in a press conference yesterday, oh, what are your plans while you're here? And then he said, we'll see. We're going to go speak to Congress or that type of thing. Are you meeting with President Biden? We're waiting to hear back from his team. You flew all the way across the country, and the leader of the alleged leader of the free world won't even give you a yes or no on if you're meeting or not.
Well, they're terrified. I mean, Biden and Kamala are both terrified of the far left.
They are.
That's why you have, that's why what's going to sort of be interesting this fall leading up to the election is Kamala's going to be outspoken against Israel, and Biden's going to be like, we back Israel.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
No, today she was saying that she raised money for Israel as a child. I think she's going to...
She also was backing Gaza, though. She's like,
she's
we
gonna
She
also
said,
have
we
to
hear
be
you,
careful
we'll
of
listen to you.
She's going to follow the Biden legacy of trying to be on every side of this issue and failing miserably. Yes. I mean, that's really what this is. I mean, they put her husband in charge of the White House anti-Semitism task force. Her stepdaughter is raising money,
and he was talking to donors the other day on some kind of Zoom call.
Right.
This is why they hate social media
so intensely on this issue.
They used to be able to show up to a rally in, let's say they go to New York, and there's a bunch of people, and Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, let's hit the 90s, Bill Clinton will be like, we're going to have no more war. And they go, I'm going to bring all our troops out of the Middle East. Desert Storm was a bad idea. I don't know what year that was. I don't know. But you're the point. They're going to say, we're not going to have these wars. And then people are going to be like, yay. Then he's going to march down to a district that's mostly funded by military contractors. And they say, we're going to make sure we defend America's interests overseas and not abandon our men. Nowadays, you can't do it.
Remember Kamala constantly changed her accents a while back? When she went down to Louisiana, she had a southern accent.
She's still doing it.
She still does that. That's going to be her on policy positions now.
Hillary
They're just going to call it code switching.
They are.
Right.
Yes.
AOC did it.
Yeah.
And if you complain about it, you're racist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Code
because we attacked the stutter.
Code
Remember,
switching.
now
That's what they call it.
Yeah, you remember code switching? It was it was a whole thing when microaggressions started being a thing that was like the new kind of racism. So code switching was the thing that people of color do when they're around their own people of color. And they talk like each other, and then they code switch when they're around white people because those nasty white people, you can't just be yourself around the nasty white people.
I mean, that's like...
But that's literally...
Everyone does it in Chicago.
Everyone does it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, do you talk the same way with your family when you get home at the end of the day as you do to your colleagues?
Right.
No, at work you talk like this. And then you get home and you're like, oh my God, it was terrible at work today, blah, whatever.
Blah, whatever.
I don't know. But everybody does it. You talk one way with your friends and another way with your
and then
siblings and then some other way with,
yada, yada, yada.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Blah, blah, blah. Code switching.
Yeah, code
Now, Hillary was...
There's an NPR podcast called Code Switching or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the problems we see culturally are due to uppity, wealthy liberals who have been isolated from society
Could it be
and
the
are
cat
just
ladies?
now discovering very basic things most of America already knows. But because they're arrogant and racist, they think they're supreme and superior and need to assert this over everyone else.
You know, Biden hit on that point. I don't know if you remember right after the debate when he was kind of in hiding for a few days and he finally came on Morning Joe and did that supposed to be recovery interview, but actually made it worse. Remember, that was when he was flipping the pages next to the microphone where like you're reading a script. He was in the interview and he said, the DC elites are trying to take me out. Joe Biden has been in DC for 51 years. He is a DC elite. He's that old white guy in the room.
All his friends turned on him.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
are,
it's
which really
the
shows you.
Julius Caesar thing.
It is. Backstabbers.
He doesn't have any friends left is the real issue. I mean,
They all died. He's of that age where all your friends died.
Absolutely. And I'm not trying to be crude, but this is the reality. Is his friends are all gone, and Kamala's 59, and he's like a younger generation. She's retirement age.
Yeah.
Jeez. What we need is like a 50-year-old. 45-year-old maybe? I mean,
We had DeSantis.
30, we could have 35.
He was like looking around, right? And he was
Vance is 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good that Vance is 40.
Well, that's actually like, leading your movement into the future.
Yes. Which is smart by Trump to say we're going to put somebody here that's younger that could be the leader of the party in the future potentially.
Also, J.D. Vance's policy plans, his ideas are really interesting because they're basically liberal plans from the mid-'80s.
They are. They all are.
My stepmother was a Democrat at the time, and my dad was a Republican. My dad was like a pro Ronald Reagan, and my stepmom was, Walter Mondale was like the race at the time.
Oh, wow.
Old timey, I know.
Mondale.
Yeah,
and I
remember sitting, not as bad as Dukakis, but I remember sitting around the dining room table with my, parents, and they would talk about different stuff, and my stepmother was all labor, families, working families, all of this kind of stuff. And my dad was like fiscal responsibility. And that's what they would argue about. And now Vance is like a little bit of fiscal responsibility, families, labor, American dream.
Yeah. I think that's what's the most fascinating thing in American politics is that the parties that we have today, though they have the same name, are fundamentally different than they were 2 or 3
Totally
decades ago.
different.
And I think that's the reality that especially like younger generations are growing up in. They actually cannot relate to their grandparents who are registered Democrats or Republicans because not only do they face different technological issues, but they are actually not talking about the same thing. So I say it a lot, but, America, it would be different if American politics were about a common goal, shared values, and we have different ideas on how to get there. But actually right now, these parties have different visions and opinions on the country. They are leading them in different directions. It's not about compromising because they don't want the same things.
Well, I don't know if you've watched Hillbilly Elegy yet. I've heard about it for years.
I've read the book.
I finally watched the Netflix show on the way back from Milwaukee while we were dealing with all the flight issues we were talking about earlier. And I was like, I have some time, I'll watch it. That's the family and community he grew up in. And so it's authentic, it's genuine, it makes sense where
they're starting to attack him for it too.
Yes,
they're like, that's not even
crazy.
real. That was a Time article today, which you want to be like, what are you talking about?
And for the Kentucky governor to come out and be like, he doesn't know what growing up in middle class was like. That's a man who grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, whose dad gave him the position he has. And you watch that or read the book, and like he grew up in the worst of the worst. Mm-hmm. And the way that he, first of all, made a career himself completely by himself, first in his family to ever go to college, and then actually become a VP nominee. Like that's the true testament to the American dream. And it's not somebody code switching or actually making up this false life story like we've seen some on the left make up. He wrote this book, years and years ago before he even entered politics. And so this is true and genuine. He didn't have aspirations at the time.
Right, and he was already successful, right?
Yes.
He had this career in Silicon Valley. It's not that he, I'm sure everyone has political aspirations when they're thinking about the future, but, it was a very different time period when he was writing it than the stage of life he's in right now. Andy Beshear out of Kentucky is on the short list, hypothetically, to be one of Kamala Harris's VP picks. So I feel like you have to look at
Shapiro.
I mean,
I feel like
it could be any of them, right? There's a guy in Arizona,
the media
too.
said they can't do Shapiro because he's Jewish.
Wow.
They
wow.
Can't have a Jewish vice president?
Yes, numerous media outlets have said that her husband and a vice president being Jewish would cost her the election.
But does the media know that that's anti-Semitic?
Actually crazy to say.
It's not because they're allowed to say it because they're the media. It's only when their opposition says it, it's bad.
Well, isn't Doug Emhoff chair of this little anti-Semitic group? He needs to be, writing some strongly worded letter against these media organizations, but they won't because they're in bed with them and they're their best friends. Now, I hope.
And they might look at Pennsylvania as a lost state, to be honest.
Really,
that's the thing about Shapiro. I mean, Trump's assassination attempt, I am sure, fundamentally changed the way Pennsylvania voters feel about the election.
Yes.
I'm not saying all of them love Trump, but I mean, to have that happen in your backyard is impactful. And so then to look towards Arizona or Kentucky or a different state there might be sort of a calculation there where they're like, look, it would be nice, but we just aren't going to win the states. We have to use these resources differently.
We heard a lot about Kelly today, and he sent out some fundraising emails for the Biden campaign, which I thought was interesting. I think Shapiro or Kelly makes the most sense to win like an actual state, but again, it's whether or not they view Pennsylvania as a lost cause. And I mean, obviously that was such a pivotal state in 20. If they do this time, that's a strong testament to obviously Trump, being so high in the polls. But the fact that, I think they can pick a VP to singularly win a state. It's just which state they choose to win.
Let's jump to this story from the Post Millennial.
Hey, that's us.
That's you. Who wrote this? There's no byline. Come on,
no
Libby. What's going on?
I know who wrote that, but I won't tell you.
It says Tucker Carlson overtakes Joe Rogan on Spotify, now the #1 podcast in America. Look at that shocked Joe Rogan face. He can't believe it. Tucker's bigger than him. I do think that likely Joe will jump back into the #1 slot in the next couple of weeks or so. But this just does show that Tucker is biting at his heels. He's getting up there. And more importantly, how white-pilling is it that the top 2 podcasts are truth tellers?
I saw your post about that. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. And Tucker has been killing it lately. He had 2 really... I mostly watch his interviews.
Posobiec.
Jack Posobiec's interview was great. And he had an interview recently with Matt Taibbi that was also really great.
I saw that,
yeah, that was really fascinating.
And you have to
Both of those were fascinating.
He rebuilt this entirely by himself. Like, there's no mainstream media support. This was him and his
like
team.
Public Square, I think.
Yes, yeah. Like, he put this together. This isn't like a Fox backup or anything like that. And Fox is like rolling over right now.
And it took a little bit of time for him to hit his stride. Like, at first it seemed good, and then it was kind of like, what's going on? And now the interviews are really good.
Has it been close to a year?
Almost.
Okay, yeah.
Has it been almost a year?
I think almost a year at this point.
One of my favorite Tucker stories, he was supposed to come to Alabama for a fundraiser the Monday after he got fired. And I remember seeing the break. I was driving from a campaign event, and I was like, oh, he's not coming anymore. And like totally would have understood. Like, you just got fired from your job. Like, you're not still coming. And he still came. And it was his first public event, and we were supposed to have a little meeting beforehand. And so I'm waiting downstairs, and he comes in, and you know him, and he's like orange.
I don't know.
Suntan.
I never met him.
Oh, okay. Well, he's like orange suntan. And it's not what he normally looks like. And I was like, well, what happened to you? And he was like, again, everybody around was like, oh, like, if he's a little upset, like, he got fired 2 days ago, like, expect that. Like, just kind of rolled the punches. He walks in doing the cackle, completely burnt orange. I was like, what happened? I've been fishing every day, golfing every afternoon, just living my best life. And I was like, I love this. Like, again, this is somebody, that happy warrior that just picks up and keeps going.
And I think worked. Fox News needed him more than they realized.
Absolutely.
In fact, they needed him more than he really needed them.
But wasn't it sort of about the Dominion lawsuit, getting him out of there so that they didn't have to fork over even more cash to Dominion?
I mean, that was an interesting calculation on their part, right? That they could continue on at the level without Tucker Carlson, and that they could lose him and he wouldn't become a competitor somewhere else. I mean, he could have gone to Newsmax, right? I mean, I think it's better that he's independent, but he was a talent that they had exclusive rights to, and they decided it was worth letting him go. And I think that must have been a miscalculation. I don't know how much money they would have owed Dominion.
And you look at the views on, you were saying those specific interviews, you look at the views on like each individual post, which obviously, Elon letting him post that long, like, is incredible. That's hundreds of millions of viewers, as opposed to he did have the #1 show, but this is a lot more. And again, if
I don't know how that all works. But,
yeah, this is great.
But yeah, I have enjoyed some of the recent interviews quite a bit. Oh, he also had a great one with Catherine Herridge.
Oh, cool.
That was a fascinating interview.
Was she the CBS reporter that got fired?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
But then,
one great interview, I won't mention it.
As much as I said it was good that the top 2 podcasts are truth tellers, the third biggest podcast is Call Her Daddy.
What's that?
It's like a girls podcast that was really like
Barstool.
raunchy back in the day, and she's become kind of a mainstream influencer.
Is it still raunchy?
I've never really listened to it. I know she got married recently. I mean, it's gone from being this like dating podcast, I think, to really becoming like kind of all around female influencer.
Well, you look at the kind of content that men listen to, and it's Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, and the kind of content that women listen to is less, I don't know what the right word is.
I can tell you what I listen to.
Studious.
It's none of this stuff.
Well, true crime is big.
True crime is big, and it has a dominant female
I listen
audience.
to Jack and Charlie. I listen to this show.
But those are male-dominated shows.
And then I listen to like spooked, just like ghost stories.
Oh yeah, I love the ghost story ones.
And I listen to Honestly with Barry Weiss.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Those
I
are
remember
mostly what I listen to.
But these are still male dominated. So like news and politics and culture is like 80% male audiences.
Even culture is 80% male.
Yep, and the female podcasts are like sex and dating,
I
and
don't
true
listen
crime.
to I don't like true crime because it's always like some child was bludgeoned to death, and you're like,
Yep.
Those are a lot of
don't
true crime.
want,
I think-
don't want.
And I think like on TV, the big shows for men are like Married to Strangers.
What's that?
You know what that is, right? You watch
It's
it.
Married at First Sight is what you're talking about, right?
But there's like 12 shows.
Oh, there's
You mean
hundreds
it's
of
not
them.
Star
Yeah,
Trek
Married
and
to
Red Letter
Strangers.
Media?
Turns out we're not watching whatever the what is it called? I can't even make The Mandalorian. That's the Star Wars.
There
one.
you go.
No, I mean I think fundamentally the
like 10
differences
more.
in what they're interested in is speaks to the fact that their brains are fundamentally different, right? It's not that women can't be interested in politics and men can't be looking for dating advice, but generally the anthropological, emotional, that kind of stuff is often something women are interested in, like. For true crime, I hear this with women all the time, like, why does this happen? How do we get here, right? Yeah. And men are often more interested in slightly different information. I can understand where it's like, this is happening now or whatever it is. That's the reality of culture. And that's why I worry for a culture that only becomes politically driven. I think that we have to have lots of different things that
We are
spark
in trouble with that right now. I mean, that is an issue. There's politics in everything. There's politics in all of our different art forms too. Like, I used to be really interested in modern art, and I still like modern art, but like, I really like Brancusi, the sculptor, and whatever else. But I used to really only like contemporary art. And then it's only within like the past 5 or 10 years that I've started getting a lot more interested, even less, like more like 5-6 years, a lot more interested in the classical arts, including like painting that's like representational painting, the religious stuff from not even the Renaissance necessarily, but like, which I like, but the Middle Ages, because there's so much sincerity in it, and there's so much sort of like a hope and wishing in it, and all of these beautiful mother and child, like the Madonna and child ones. I love that. But you don't see contemporary art forms and entertainments that are not infused with politics.
That's a good point. And like we said earlier, like it's shoved in your face.
It's
and
shoved
you're
in your
brought
face.
into politics
And
constantly.
isn't part of that have to do with the fact that we've let religion to slip into such huge decline?
Absolutely.
And religion is somewhere that we see the beautiful things.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you look to God and you look to the heavens that you think like, oh, what beautiful sky, what beautiful trees, what a beautiful thing mankind is. What beautiful things we are to each other. And we don't see that even half as much as we used to because we don't value the beauty of it. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like mankind was created in God's image, right? That's what we learn in Genesis. Mankind was created in God's image. But as we move away from God, we move away from the beautiful because God created us to be beautiful, just like him, you know, as best we can. God created us to be beautiful. And as we let go of God, it's almost like we're flipping God off by saying, and now we're going to be ugly.
Yeah.
We don't want to be beautiful like you. And I think that's a real tragedy.
Yeah. And I think we see this, you know, as our culture becomes more atheist, more agnostic, we see this in all kinds of things. I mean, when we were in Milwaukee, I was in love with the Milwaukee Public Library that was down the street from the RNC convention, right? It's gorgeous. It's beautiful architecture. I mean, a lot of
gorgeous.
The art and creativity isn't just painting and writing and fiction and movies and plays and stuff like that. Like that's obviously integral. And I think people who are passionate about it should pursue it, but it's also like the architecture we put out. I mean, you know, when I lived in Dallas, they were throwing up apartment buildings really quickly because people moving there, but it didn't look like the historic, you know, buildings that were created in a lot of major cities. We forget regional architecture in our rush to kind of put up whatever. And you'll see this with, you know, kind of the brutalist architecture. There are so many things that we could pour beauty into that, you know, whether intentional or not, whether it's because we don't like beauty, we are kind of rejecting it, or because we're in a rush to sort of get things done as cheaply and quickly as possible, we aren't investing into it. Either way, you know, we are losing something that was so important to a society for so long, and I think that's terrible.
And to your point about faith earlier, when I was writing the book, I went back and forth with my publishing team. The middle section of the book is called the modern day F words, and it's faith, family, and freedom. And they're like, you can't call it the modern day F words.
I like that.
Thank you. And I was like, that's the cornerstone of America. Like the founding fathers
Never
sat
listen
down.
to your publisher.
Yeah, well, and it worked, but we put that together and still put it out, and that's been everybody's favorite chapter every time we talk to people, because it's true. Faith, family, and freedom are constantly attacked by the left. It was the cornerstone of America, and the left knew when they attacked that, they attacked all of America, and it was this kind of thing. And we constantly see these polls that are thrown in the media, every few weeks, that Gen Z, doesn't like America, doesn't see the beauty of America, don't have hope in America. And it's because we're constantly told how bad it is, and we don't view it as this, this is a God-sent thing. Like, this is this opportunity of this great experiment that obviously stood the test of time for 248 years. But, not to sound like Kamala Harris, but when you don't step back and look at the context of it, without a coconut
she is
tree,
getting to you. You admit it.
When you listen to it, you just look at all of it, like everything around you, you're like, wow, like, it is pretty cool that America's here this long. You look at the contemporary art, but they don't want us to do that. They don't want us to look at the classical stuff. It's just the news cycle's bad. Look right in front of you. Look how bad the fear-mongering is. Let's scare you some more, get you to vote.
Hate yourself.
Yes,
Cut
that's
off
all
your
it
boobs.
is. Yes,
Yeah.
which is terrifying.
I wonder what the shift was that made politics pop culture, or vice versa. I think it may have to do.
It had to have been
It
Trump.
was so in 2008 we started seeing media companies making money off getting political because rage drove traffic. But I think it was also a strategy from Democrats predominantly trying to figure out how to capitalize younger voters in 2008, 2012. And they were like, so let's attack social media where young people are. And then this created a generation of people who are like, politics is pop culture.
Mm-hmm. And I think for Gen Z, I really briefly worked at a school, not as a teacher, just kind of administration and staff. And I remember that there was sort of a praise for the students who would take on activism. And it was an all-girls school, and it was very, I think just generally progressive. But there was a desire to sort of show that your youth was politically engaged in a correct way. And to the detriment to critical thinking and expression, because I think there are a lot of young people who are looking for validations from their teachers and their parents. And if they're signaled like, oh, well, we think it's cool that you're so precocious and want you to talk about these issues and what else. I mean, you see this often with young children who are brought to testify before state government when they have these bills banning transgender, medical interference laws, and they'll bring out these young, I would say, very confused people whose parents are probably like, wow, you're changing everyone's life. You're doing so great. And they crave affirmation, which is super normal. That's how kids are. And it's sort of confusing being mature and interesting with taking on and parroting the views of someone else.
Yeah. And you mentioned 2008. They claim, 2008 was the first Twitter election when that, everything became on social media. I think 24 is going to be the first TikTok election where it's like, and Trump and I talked about this, where you can put a 15-second video out for free. And right now he's getting at least 200 million views on each video for free, as opposed to spending hundreds of $1 million on like a 30-second ad that
I don't believe it's
people
real.
aren't watching cable.
I think
You
it's
don't
fake.
think the views are real?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
On TikTok? How come?
Just industry stuff. So I'll just put it this way: I've met people who let's phrase it like this: selling advertisements, selling sponsorship. We do this all the time, and we'll go to a sponsor and we'll say we can get X amount of views, and they will tell us we are not interested in TikTok and a couple other platforms who I will not mention because it's a waste of money. And the issue is, so the one thing we hear about like YouTube sponsorships is they're like, I can't believe how well the ad performed when we sponsor your show. It's incredible. And I'm like, yeah, because we have a lot of people who are watching. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, but we sponsor other shows of comparable views and nobody buys stuff. And I'm like, because the views probably aren't real. Because they'll say my podcast gets X amount of views and that's not correct. And so I could be wrong about TikTok. Yeah. What I can say is that they don't convert. And so we don't prioritize it all that heavily because it's hard to actually capitalize.
Sure. I haven't heard that yet. That's a good point.
Yeah. There's a couple other platforms I won't mention. I'm not 100% on TikTok. I don't know exactly what's going on their platform. It's fine, whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying my opinion. We've talked to sponsors and said, we only do sales really on the audio versions. So you can, for everyone listening, we're on iTunes and Spotify as well. People are like, hey, the show's not on YouTube. What do I do? It's on iTunes and Spotify. It's on every podcast platform, by the way. But they'll come to us and they'll say, we take all our metrics from every platform. We show them to the sponsors. We have like a deck and we'll be like, look what we can do for you. And we're very, very, very particular. That's why we almost never have any sponsors. On the podcast version, I think we have like 4 or 5. Because I'll just outright be like, not reading that, won't do that. You get a lot of sponsors that are like, will you say that our underwear is the best underwear you've ever tried? And I'm like, if I try it and I think it's the best underwear I've ever tried. And they go, really?
You mean you're not like Biden? You're not going to read a teleprompter, whatever they put in front of you? You're just not going to say?
I will tell you this. It's all fake. I know some people who have big endorsement deals and they outright say like, I never wore those shorts before. Huh. And they're like,
really? That's
100%.
I mean, I believe it, but that sucks. I like when Happy Gilmore when he
sandwiches,
starts the Subway.
Yeah. But my point ultimately is, when we were recently negotiating with someone and they said we want to buy X amount of ad reads or whatever, and I was like, well, I don't know if we could do it. What if we did this instead on these platforms? And they were like, not interested. And I said, why not these platforms? And they said, because they never convert and we waste our money. And I'm like, huh. So the views may be real, but the question is, with things like TikTok, and I'll just say, I'm not trying to be a dick, but X, X
doesn't convert.
Well, look, we did we stopped we tried multi-streaming 2 days and then we stopped because people are like, wow, Tim, you got 800,000 views on X. And I'm like, yeah. And then we looked at the back end. And it's like, I like X. X does what it does, but it doesn't do the live streams in the same way that it does. I can post something and get 1,000 retweets, and then those actually do convert. So the thing about X that works is if I tweet. But if someone's like, will you do a video with a sponsor? I'm like, So we've offered that. We're like, hey, what if we do a stream on X? And then we do no, because it's not gonna work. So I think the issue is with TikTok, people are gonna scroll through. Trump's gonna get the view, but 200 million. I mean, you got to be talking about people in Indonesia, Turkey, Singapore. How many Americans are you actually reaching with this? So when Mr. Beast gets 200 million views on a YouTube video, it's like, yo, there's not that many Americans. No, there's not. Like, there's 330 million, but I'm saying, like, they're not all YouTube, Mr. Beast fans on YouTube. So the question is, are these actually worth getting? And that's why we don't care that much about TikTok. What I think we have to be careful of is there's been some other people who have been like, that we get an email and they're like, we'd love to book Tim Pool to come on our show. We have 1 million followers. And I go, how about that? And then I go to their profile and they have 1,000 views and 10 comments. And I'm like, wow. No, you don't. And that's the same thing. So I don't think TikTok is actually all that worth it, in my opinion. But, I don't think TikTok will be the great influencer. Has Dylan Mulvaney been in the news recently?
No.
That's really kind of weird.
In a wellness check.
I'm trending on Twitter all the time, and then journalists use Twitter, and then journalists write about it. So this is what X is. Constant. That's why it's so powerful. Yeah, X. Instagram is also converts really well. Instagram's crazy. People love buying on Instagram, but I don't see it on TikTok. That's just me. I could be wrong. It could just be us.
I think TikTok is weird because it does have an influence on some types of commerce. Like I remember when the world was out of feta cheese because that one recipe went viral. Or you'll hear this story about like book talk, like authors will have released a book 7 years ago and all of a sudden it'll just kind of blow up and they'll suddenly have this new fan base. But it's hard for me to know entirely because we don't totally know how they count views. Like how long does someone have to stay on a video? What kind of engagement do they have to have? Weird. It's all weird and it's all, shadows, right?
Very shadowy.
I think ultimately we'll probably see a collapse of the influencer market. I think that is an industry that has blown up and it will, it will change. But it is interesting because you'll find that there are some people who have, are on the cutting edge, right? Like there are probably people on Rumble who have a very loyal following that don't have any engagement somewhere else. I mean, it might become more siloed than we realized it. I just don't know what the future of social media holds because we just don't know what's coming.
Neuralink.
That's a no from me, dog. But you already know that.
You're gonna get a book offer, and they're gonna say, "We really want you to write this book. It's got a $3 million advance, and it's because 20 years, $3 million will be equivalent of 200,000." And then you're gonna be like, "That's great," and they'll be like, "So we'd love to do this deal. What's your Neuralink username?" And you're gonna be like, "Oh, I don't have Neuralink," and they're gonna go, "How do we send you the contract?" And you're gonna be like, "Well, I have email," and they're gonna be like, excuse me?
Look, I still ask for restaurants to give me a paper menu even when they have a QR code. I can make it for a little while, probably.
Thankfully, I will be dead.
Try applying for a job today and letting them know that you have a rotary phone, that you're at your house between the hours of X and X, and right. They can only call you then. They're going to be like, yeah, I'm not hiring you.
Yeah.
They're going to say, where do I email you? I don't have a computer, but I do have a touch-tone phone.
People talked about this, especially during COVID, because they were like, well, schools are remote. But then, especially in the southern part of West Virginia, like the infrastructure doesn't support universally strong wireless services. And so it's like you are actually asking me to use a resource that I don't have. I mean, we will see.
That was why Biden went out there and he just kept talking about internet service.
We got fiber out here now.
Oh.
Which is really great news.
I had friends during COVID who had to go park in a McDonald's parking lot and connect to their Wi-Fi and do things.
Wow.
What if there's no McDonald's near
That's what I'm
you?
saying. Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So
There's no McDonald's, just go to the Starbucks.
So,
I'm sure Welt, West Virginia is prepared for that.
we were when we first moved to Western Maryland with in the castle, the only internet was 20 megabit what is it, DSL or like, I don't know.
That sounds like a thing.
Yeah. And so we asked.
DSL was a thing.
Yeah, it's using a phone line.
Yeah.
And so we asked about a fiber optic, and it took I think 4 or 5 months, and it's $3,000 a month. And they had to lay like 1.5 miles of fiber cable from their backhaul connection down underground to our building. And so that I think cost like $30,000.
You like founding a civilization in Maryland, or what were you doing?
Well, so we're out in West Virginia, and in order to get internet here, we have to pay the company to lay the fiber line underground for miles upon miles to then wire the building up. We have Starlink backup, and now the good news is the provider out here has recently upgraded to fiber. Okay. So now you got to lay the cables.
I knew someone in West Virginia was trying to work with a fiber provider and had to sign a contract, like, because it was a business, and be like, I will be here for, I can't remember, it's 3 or 5 years, because the businesses are gambling, right? Like they have to invest in it.
Yeah. So they'll say something like, if you do a 5-year guaranteed contract, they will cover 70% of the cost to lay the cable on the underground. If you do a 2-year, then they'll cover 20%. And if you do no guarantee, you got to pay full cost, $30,000 or whatever. And then we did some kind of deal because I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. And then they installed the wrong box because there's like 2 different kinds. I can't remember exactly what happened. And then we were like, why is the internet working? And they were like, whoops. And then they had to come out and reprogram it. So dumb.
I'll say I'm on your Wi-Fi and it works great. So
yeah, well the thing is, like, consumer gigabit internet is $100. Business rural gigabit internet is like $2,000 to $3,000 a month per month. Crazy. That's right. All right, everybody, we're going to go to Super Chats, so smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. 1 like equals 1 FKH? I'm trying it out. What do you guys think? I don't know. FJB just kind of rolled off the tongue. I saw a truck the other day. It said FJB under it. Was like Dodge Ram or whatever, and it said FJB under it. And I'm like, he's got to take that off now.
I spoke at Rock the South the other day. It's this really big Southern music festival, country music festival, 35,000 young people there. And I came out and gave this spiel about registering to vote and how important it is and blah, blah, blah. This is the day before Biden dropped out. It was last Saturday. I couldn't get through my speech, Tim, because of the FJB chants.
Yeah.
Like, had to pause because it was so loud. It was great. It was wonderful. So now I have to change it.
Well, FKH. So head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly. And then you can come hang out for our members only uncensored call-in show coming up at 10 p.m. where members get to call in and actually talk to us and our guests hang out on the show. It's totally worth it. And in the meantime, we are going to read your super chats, but I will stress this too. It's very important for all of you guys to know this. When we had an episode taken down a couple days ago, I'm getting a bunch of messages saying, like, where's the episode? Where's the episode? And it's always up on iTunes and Spotify right when the show wraps. So if you're ever on YouTube and you don't see anything, it's going to be there. And then depending on what happens, it may be on Rumble as well. So important context. But for those that would like to, you can also just listen on iTunes and Spotify as well. I will tell you this, iTunes and Spotify conversions are insane.
I didn't know that.
So I think it's like 4x for iTunes to YouTube. It could be more. It could be like 10.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you get, like, the CPMs are bonkers. I think it's 10 times. It could be 5 or 10 times the revenue. So it's like
that's what everybody has a podcast. That makes sense.
I think if you get like 100,000 views on your podcast, you might be making like 100,000 a month. If you get 100, and that's in one day, 100,000. If you get 100,000 on YouTube, you're going to make like $200. So it's like that's substantially. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's per day. Yeah. So let's see. If you're doing like 100,000 per day, you're going to be getting Yeah, I think it might be like 5 times as much revenue on podcasts. Wow. Well, the thing is about podcasts is that people turn them on, they leave them on the whole time.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, and they convert better for whatever reason. I think the issue, too, with social media is that people are scrolling through things, they click things, they X them out. But when you pull it up on your phone, you put your phone down in your car, you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up generating a lot more money. All right, T-Bomb85 says, howdy, very fine people. And then an eggplant and a peach emoji. Oh. Clint Torres in second place with howdy people. It's finally happened, Clint. You've been dethroned, fortunately. Clint always has the first one, but not today. Token Black Guy says, howdy people. Tim, when Trump wins the presidency, can SCNR request a White House correspondence reporter? I think Hannah Claire would be a good pick, although she'd probably hate it.
No, she'd be good
I have
at
a
it.
great time. I
Yeah,
would love to
she'd
do
have
that. That'd be so fun.
And
or I want to
wasn't,
follow Melania Trump around. I think she's great. Would love. I don't know that Scanner needs a specific Melania correspondent, but if we do, I'm there.
should totally
That
do
actually, I mean, that'd be kind of brutal because they do the press conference at, like 2 p.m. or 1 p.m.?
Yeah.
And then coming on the show after having been there would actually be...
That would be
really
cool.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should totally do that.
You'd be like, I asked the press secretary personally, and they told me this.
I think it would be cool. And again, I think it would kind of marry the relationship between alternative media. Like instead of a White House correspondent calling into Fox, it would be like, I am here with you guys.
Yes.
Well, that was such a cool thing when Trump was in office because you had OAN in the briefing room,
Yes.
you had Newsmax,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes there'd be random other outlets just hanging out in the
Sean
briefing room.
Spicer started it where once a month at the beginning of the administration, you could Zoom in if you had a podcast.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. I need to bring that back.
Yeah.
That was really
Yeah,
cool.
that was...
cool too.
Yeah, you could
And they
ask
made
a
fun.
question.
The corporate press was pissed.
Of course they were.
But they've been pissed about everything ever since
Right.
the blogosphere.
Well, because they're dying.
Yes.
All right, let's
Well,
go.
yeah.
Tim Crespi says, how can Kamala as VP count the Electoral College votes? She's going to be running and then counting the votes for herself without ever getting a vote. It would be really funny if she just she gets up there at the podium. She's like, I'm going to count the votes that you've all given me. Or she's like, I'm going to count the votes for the president. Here's the ones you've given me, but I got this basket right here. Kamala? And they're going to be like, wait a minute.
This was just sitting here when I walked up.
Yeah, these must be the votes. Villainous V says, Tim, does Kamala still have the post on X about the fundraiser for the BLM riders, or did they delete it?
It's still there.
Also, howdy, Clint. Yeah, still there.
And it still takes money, which is insane. She's a sitting VP raising money for bail reform.
BC says, A.G. Bailey was just here the other day, hating on VP Harris for wrongfully keeping people imprisoned. Today, he did the same thing with Christopher Dunn, who has been wrongly imprisoned for 31 years. What's that about?
I do not know.
I don't know
Dunn?
enough about that case.
No.
Hold
I
on.
don't know.
Give me a second. I'll brief myself.
The future White House correspondent's going to do some research over here.
I feel like there must be something going on there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What's the story?
So 20 hours ago, Missouri Supreme Court halts release of a man with an overturned conviction as he's about to go free. This is AP News.
He has an overturned conviction?
That's what they're saying.
So why can't he go
Threatened
free?
by...
And so Bailey didn't do it. The Supreme Court did. What do you mean?
It said
Or
AP
he's-
News is reporting
I see,
that he's
he's-
been fighting Dunn's release.
Right.
The situation was chaotic as a deadline was set by the judge approaches. Corrections Department spokesperson Karen Pomajan told the Associated Press that Dunn was out of the prison facility and waiting for a ride. His wife told AP News she was on his way to pick him up. Let me read about this for a minute and I'll give you a summary.
Well, I'm just wondering what the crime was and why Bailey's contesting it. Let's go.
Wait, hold on. No, you guys talk. I'm going to find out.
Long Wing D-Train says, just a reminder to cheer up your day, have a chuckle, and always a white pill moment. Look up Antifa Frying Pan on YouTube. Good things come in humorous small moments. We are going to make it. I wonder if that's them making pancakes with the frying pan. I wonder.
Somebody told Kamala that advice about chuckling, and she really took it to heart. She's done it
Stop
every moment of
chuckling?
every day. No, to start
right.
chuckling, to make her day better.
But someone did. I think the marketing and PR consultants are just like, you've got to laugh every second, no matter
Any
what.
question, laugh.
Anything.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. What have we here? Mike Harrison says, Tim, I have been suffering all week with an infected root canal. I'm here today to ask if you could shout out my Give, Send, Go. It is Michael H. Dental Work. I need help paying for expensive dental work I need done. Thank you. Well, best of luck, sir. They said that, because I just literally had that like 2 or 3 weeks ago, antibiotics, dirt cheap, and it instantly alleviates the pain, and they weren't kidding. Award-winning Taint says, always fun to watch Brimcast with co-host Tim Pool and specialty guest Libby Emmons, a lineup worthy of an award like myself.
Look, the coup is successful and we have supporters out there. I appreciate it.
It was grassroots.
Yeah, it was.
It was grassroots.
Immediately, especially led by Tim, who said, I can't come into work today.
This is I easily exemplified what's wrong with transferring all of Biden's funds to Kamala Harris by saying, what if I told all of you to become a member and I, Tim Pool, a show that you know and love, we will utilize this funding to hire good people, to build culture, to do a news show. And then once everyone donated, I went, oh, and by the way, we're putting Ian in charge and I'm quitting. You'd be like, no way.
Kind of rude.
That's
Yeah.
basically what happened with Kamala Harris.
That is what happened. All of these voters are entirely disenfranchised, and the attorneys general for these states where the voters were disenfranchised should be up in arms and suing.
Could you imagine being like a white supremacist right now? Going like, oh, I donated to the old white guy. What's going on? Oh, jeez. He's going to want his money back.
Isn't that all white people?
That's all the white liberals. Okay, what do we have? Franco Phillips says, Tim and crew, take a look at the recent picture of Biden and Netanyahu. Biden stands 4 inches taller, although Google has them both at 6 foot. What? Well, yeah, but Google could be wrong.
Yeah.
They had J.D. Vance at 5'7".
And I also think a lot of men claim to be 6 feet when they are maybe not.
Is that self-reported? We'll have to look that up. That's crazy.
Yeah. What have we here? Gary Mark says, please stop calling us snowflakes. A snowflake in an avalanche. What else could I say? The raindrops in the flood? Yes, the unique snowflakes. You're all unique and beautiful snowflakes. We're here to be positive and whatever. Koroag says, we refuse to teach the next generation about the basic foundation of having good character. The foundations are responsibility, accountability, and integrity. Thoughts? Do you believe there is a more basic foundation? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that they're asking some complex questions in this chat.
What is the foundation of good character?
I think that it starts in the home. And so I know we constantly attack like indoctrination in the schools, which absolutely needs to stop, but we need to start again and encourage good parenting, because that's how I have good character, which is a crazy concept.
Yep.
But I think that once we start, actually inspiring Christian conservative values and morals in the living room, we're going to have a lot better country. And we're going to look at this 10, 20 years from now and be like, wow, these young patriots that are coming up in middle school, where did this come from? And it's from strong parents. So when we encourage strong parenting, with school choice and great things like that, I think they're onto something there.
Marcus M says, quote, I'll throw beef. I missed. Did it work? Nope, didn't work. Is my favorite out of context Tim Pool quote we've gotten from a live morning show. So the autofocus after I started the show just focused on the mic and blurred my face. So I grabbed that beef and I threw it at the camera to try and force it to, shift, and it didn't work. And that's why I said those things. But the best quote ever is the one that Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Tunes turned into a cartoon where I was talking about how if you live in a city, Antifa will attack you and they'll beat you. Yep. But if you live in the countryside, you can have chickens. But the way he pulled that out of context makes it sound like if you don't leave the city, I'm going to beat you unless you buy chickens or something like that. And it's tremendously hilarious. And I'll pull it up. I don't know actually. What did Seamus even call it?
Just so we have it wrapped up, the Christopher Dunn situation in Missouri, he was convicted of a stabbing in the 90s, and then his conviction was overturned. But Bailey's office, at least in June, had said through the appeals process, multiple courts have affirmed that Christopher Dunn's murder conviction. We will always fight to obtain the rule of law. So there's a question about whether his overturned conviction is fair, I guess.
Okay. So it could be an issue of progressives trying to get a bad guy out.
Yeah, I don't know enough about what the appeal process looked like. We have to see why the conviction was overturned to understand both sides of it.
Barrett1313 says, Tim, please shout out Creekside Antiques in downtown Martinsburg is having a free swap meet this Saturday, 7/27, 2 blocks from the Cast Brew location. My wife and I will have a booth there. Great deals.
Wait, that sounds really cool.
Everyone should go to,
cool.
If you've got nothing else to do, come to good old Martinsburg. And go to Creekside Antiques to meet and to talk to people, to check out antiques.
What time is it at?
It doesn't say. I don't know. I wonder if it's on Google. Are you going to go check it out?
The weekend now.
Well, I might, because I'm doing stuff and driving around with my kid this weekend and taking him to his friend's birthday party. And
there's some really great restaurants.
Dinner.
I recommend Bricks.
Yeah. That's where I was going to take him because you said,
dude, it's so good.
You said it was good. So sometime we're going to go there.
X27.
They sous vide the filet mignon and
Don't
then
know
they
what that
pan.
means.
It means it's like slow cooked at a very, very low temperature.
Oh.
It's like in hot water. It's like sealed, and then they put it in hot water, so it gets real tender. And then they like bake it and pan-sear it or something. It's just one of the best I've ever had. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they got truffle fries. Big fan.
There's an oyster bar that's opened pretty recently in that area too, and apparently it's really good. I've never been.
It's coming up. There's a building there that's like 500,000 square feet that was like, yeah, crazy. And it was on sale for like $700,000, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Because how do you maintain something like that? And I guess a big firm bought it and they're converting it to condos. So Martinsburg is coming up.
Absolutely.
Are you talking about the factory that's
Yeah, is that what it was?
Yeah. It's interesting because it's a developer out of Virginia that has converted several different large scale factories into apartments and stuff.
I was going to buy that building.
There.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was before we were looking at the castle. I was like, we could have a factory. And then the issue is, how do you maintain such a large building? And I was like, I don't. And they're like, yeah, dude, someone's going to break in a block away.
A block away.
Yeah, and you're gonna and I
have no idea.
And it's hard when buildings have been sitting empty for a while because I know that building had gone through a couple different changes in ownership.
Yep.
But it is interesting to see. I mean, I hope this happens to a lot of American towns, right? People come in and invest in the area. There are a couple other investors that have invested in that downtown Martinsburg block and made them nice apartments, and I know they sold out immediately.
Better than tearing down, old architecture. Like you're revitalizing. I
Yeah,
love
for
that.
sure.
That's great.
I like that
It's
too.
really good.
I like a little landmark status
Yes.
now and then.
Yes.
Yeah. It's cool.
JG says, hey, Tim Crew, I have a great career opportunity near Lockport, Illinois. Oh, Lockport. But it means leaving Florida. Anywhere near there, we should check out when I interview next week. Appreciate your efforts. And remember, the left lane is for crime.
Hill?
Lockport's, I've not spent too much time in Lockport, but I had friends who lived around there. I think my friend's mom lived there. I don't know what to tell you. If you're going to Lockport, just go to Chicago. And go to Villa Rosa Pizza on Archer Avenue. It's near Archer and Central. Maybe, I think it's right before Central. And that's where I used to get pizza from when I was a little kid, and I'm pretty sure they're still there.
Well, cool.
Yeah, Villa Rosa Pizza,
They
tavern
are
style.
still there because I was going to go there, but then I didn't end up in Chicago for long enough. And I just went to the Art Institute.
You checked it out, though? You looked it up?
I looked it up, yeah, and it was open.
Yeah, when I was little, whenever my school or my family or anybody would order pizza, it was always, there's other places, there's Danny's and there's Abby's, but it was always Villa Rosa. Like, so my school would do pizza day or whatever, and it would be from Villa Rosa. Because I guess they would like put so much sausage on it. I always liked pepperoni, but they were like, people loved it. And it's Chicago tavern style.
There's some ad, I think it's Pizza Hut, that is like, hey, you guys let out the secret that tavern style is Chicago's real pizza form or something.
What?
We had just had this conversation, like
Pizza Hut did an ad about that?
I think it's Pizza Hut. I don't know. I just got like an ad for it on YouTube where they were saying like, because everyone said, you were telling me like it's not actually deep dish, it's tavern style. That's the one that
like deep dish is Chicago style, but if you are living in Chicago and you order a pizza, it's going to be Chicago tavern style, which is thin crust,
like
flat,
Detroit
and it's
style.
cut
like
in
that.
squares and it's
Yeah.
got triangles in each corner.
That's really cool.
I always loved the corners.
Anyways, I just
weird
saw
little
the ad from
triangles.
some chain company saying like, you let out this secret, and I was thinking, I just learned about this.
Maybe it was directed at you, literally. Like,
Yeah.
we're looking at you, Anna Clark.
Stop talking about this on that podcast.
I just want more people to know of the deliciousness that is Chicago's tavern style pizza. S.A. Federali says, shout out to Gina Carano. Nobody will believe my Twitter account got nuked for the same reason Laura Loomer's did. Before that, I reached deep down, basically told Gina she was a light in the dark for all of us. Her name has a candle after ever since. It's crazy that Gina Carano was on track to be like a megastar.
Really.
And she's such an amazing and kind, gentle person. I mean, she's like one of those bright spot in the universe people.
She was in Deadpool, the first one. That movie was huge, and then she's in Mandalorian. The show was huge. She was on track, and then they lied about what she said. She said, "Hey, don't demonize your neighbor," and then they were like, "She's saying conservatives are
What a
like
crazy
Jews."
thing to say. I mean,
Nuts. But she defeated Disney's motion to dismiss.
She did, which is amazing.
So that's bad news for Disney because I think we might move to Discovery. And I'm willing to bet there's going to be messages at Disney where they're just like, well, I just plain don't like conservatives, so fire her or something like that.
Either that or they're going to settle. And she could
Yep.
ideally get, if they did settle, I would hope that she gets enough money that she can do some of her own projects.
Yeah, that'd be good. What I love about this story is she fought back against cancel culture, and you so very rarely see that of people that get canceled, quote unquote, or attempted cancellation, and they cower in the corner like, oh my goodness, like I'm scared, I'm just gonna do this.
It's not easy.
It's not, no, not at all, no. But she was courageous and actually did this and fought back and slapped him, and this is what happened, and it's great. Like she had this victory here. So
Raymond, yeah, absolutely. Raymond G. MAGA Stanley Jr. says, MAGA, sorry, it's MAGA, everybody. I have a family reunion this weekend, lots of Dems. I look forward to their talking points they got from NBC, ABC, etc. Will I be invited back next year?
He's trying not to have to get invited back.
Maybe we could have like, I don't know, Hannah Claire, if you or Elad wanted to put together like the ultimate show this to your family video. Ooh. And it's not a partisan thing. It's just like, here's the media saying Kamala is the border czar. Here's them now saying she was never the border czar. So just basically showing how the media lies about everything and you can't figure out what's real. Yeah. And then all you do is you take the video and you go to your friends and family and say, I don't know about none of all that, and I'm not here to argue politics, but check out this video. Yeah. And then be like, I don't know what to believe.
Yeah. That's like Brendan Straka talks about that when he did the walk away thing, and he said he really hated Trump, and then he saw the video.
He was trying to prove someone wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Someone said that Trump didn't actually mock a disabled reporter, and he was like, are you kidding? We've all seen it. So I'm going to pull the video up and prove it. And then he watched the full video and was like, oh, he wasn't mocking a disabled reporter.
I met 2 people last week in Panther Arena in that media space walking around who were red-pilled because they tried to do research to say that Trump was racist and did the research and proved themselves wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were like, I'm here because of that. And I was like, wow, like they voted against him in 2020, like very recently, and tried to do research for their shows. Like these are reporters and had become red-pilled because of that. So just do your own research.
Because the other thing too is it makes you start to wonder what else they're lying about. Like the Democrats always say that Trump is anti-LGBT, and he had the first openly gay cabinet member in Rick Grinnell.
Yeah.
No, he's
and he's the first presidential candidate to support gay marriage before Barack Obama opposed it. Mm-hmm. He said we shouldn't do this. We should have civil unions. We shouldn't have gay marriage. Hillary Clinton still opposed it in 2016. Mm-hmm. That was funny. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we want Hillary. She's for gay rights. Like she literally is not even now.
And she just wants to bomb kids.
Yeah, yeah.
The kid bombers.
All right. Kaylee Baloney says, Tim, we need espresso beans from Cask Brew Coffee. Perfect name for it, Speed Freedom Blend. Just put an American flag on the bag. We have Focus with Mr. Bocus. The bags have been designed, and it should be coming soon, and we're very excited for this one in memory of Mr. Bocus. And then once that comes out, what we're going to do is we're going to do like an end-all Mr. Bocus pumpkin spice experience thing where we're going to sell it at just like cost or whatever, and just there you go. There's no more of them. We were planning on discontinuing it, but then we accidentally ordered more.
Good job.
Yeah, because it's like the order form is just like you put in numbers. It's like you don't actually type it out. So it's like we're going to order groups 1, 3, 5, whatever, something like that. And then it's just like, okay, we got an extra 1,000 bags. And I was like, oh. Someone came to me and said, oh, we ordered more. And I was like, whatever. But then we're discontinuing that one, and then we're going to do.
I think it's someone on staff who just really loves Mr. Bocus and doesn't want his legacy to go.
But we're doing the Focus with Mr. Bocus.
Maybe they only like fall Mr. Bocus.
I suppose. But, that'll be coming soon. Boosted Yogi says, imagine Trump becoming the highest paid TikToker.
Ooh.
He could be.
Could be.
I don't think TikTokers make that much money off TikTok, though.
I don't think they do either.
I know people who are like, I make money on this platform. Like, I don't know, man.
I think so.
So someone mentioned, like, aren't we banned? We were banned, but with the way TikTok works is you get banned, you just make a new account. And so I think we've got like 2 different accounts for me personally and then for the show. And it's just, we just don't get anything from it. Like with Facebook, you make money.
Yeah.
Facebook's actually not that bad. You can make good money on Facebook. Some people make ridiculous sums of money on Facebook. It's crazy. We don't. We make a little bit. YouTube's really good. YouTube's probably the best. In terms of, well, no, in all seriousness, iTunes is the highest conversion, highest CPM. So when you're selling ads.
It makes sense what you say when you just listen to a podcast. You just put it on. You don't stop listening to it.
People are in their cars.
I listen to podcasts when I'm like cleaning up the house or whatever, and I don't go rush and find the thing to zap forward.
Yeah.
Brett Russell says, your audio has been very low since you went to the RNC. I like listening to you when I drive, and on my phone while I data input, I have to crank my car volume in my phone. It's really hard to hear. I am looking right now at the levels, and we are currently in the red, just about at like -4 decibels. So that's actually, we're in the red zone.
What's that mean?
It means any louder and yeah, so I don't know, man. Maybe it's your car. Let's see if other people say the same thing, and then we'll hit it. We'll hit the computer with a hammer.
You'll investigate yourself and come back and said you did nothing wrong?
No, percussive maintenance will hit until it fixes the audio. What have we here? Is this... Dom says, go to Trump's Insta. That's where you'll see Gen Z humor. Why? Is he posting stuff?
Or is it just the comment section?
What's his... Real Donald Trump? Yes. Oh, I see. Real Donald Trump. What's he posting? He posted a video of Kamala Harris. What is this? Kamala Harris is a failure. And let's see. Here we go. This is a Gen Z person voting for Trump. Okay. Here's another person. Trump. Here's what looks like some kind of porn star. Trump.
This is a Gen Z female. She says, the party that can't even define what a woman is wants you to vote for a woman. Make it make sense.
You can't.
They can't.
All right, we'll grab a couple more here. What do we got? Eridus Industries says he's on right-wing social media. You know there are feds in there. A fed befriends this lonely loser and gives him ideas, visits his house. The social media site might be the connection. Interesting. Jeremy Rutledge says, shout out to the great state of Alabama. Moving here was the best choice I ever made. If you want to get fit and train your firearm, visit Common Ground Training in Calera. Is that how you pronounce it? Calera?
Calera. Roll Tide to that.
There you go. All are welcome. They have tons of experience. There you go. Katoth Swiss says there's no way Libby registered in 1993.
You want to defend your claim, Libby?
I'm pretty sure it was 94.
And then it was 96 was the election, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't register until, so I went to college and I didn't register to vote then. And then I moved off campus and I registered to vote when I moved off campus, which must have been, you're right, it wasn't 1993. It was 1996.
When you registered?
When I registered. I was 18. Yep. I turned 18 in 1993, but I didn't register until 96.
Why? Just because you were like, I'm not feeling it. I'm busy.
What do I care? And then my mom was like, you need to vote. And I was like, oh my God.
I wish your 18-year-old self could see you now. Like the one that was like, I'm just going to be an artist and there are plays. And now you're like,
you know what? My 18-year-old self would have been like, all right, fine. That's fine.
Let's grab one
I still
more.
Like your clothes. It's fine.
We'll grab one more here. We have Asa. Is that how you pronounce it? Please look up book Kamala Harris and the Future of America by Caleb Maupin. Huge censorship campaign pulled off Amazon. Online site started failing all payments. We need to get the word out. No idea. Interesting. But my friends, I will tell you what, we're going to go to the members only show. That's what we're going to do. So smash that like button. 1 like equals 1 FKH. It doesn't really work. I don't like it. We'll figure something out. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Over at timcast.com, we're going to have the members only call-in show where you guys can call and hang out, talk to us and our guests. That'll be up in a couple minutes. Share the show with all your friends. Smash the like button. And we'll, do you want to shout anything out? Well, you got a book, right?
You can buy the book, signed copies at brylonbook.com. And I just appreciate the opportunity. This is a lot of fun. It's a lot better than network TV. This is great.
Yeah. Thanks
we didn't even pay him to say that.
They didn't. I was not paid anything.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. And of course, check out everything we're doing every day at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com.
And just a shout out to Libby. She gave me my first opportunity when I wanted to write my first op-ed. And they published it.
Yeah,
and
we
she took a chance on me.
A couple years ago. That's right.
It was like 20,
we were your
21.
first.
They were the first. Nobody else would publish it.
I take full credit.
She should take, yes.
Mr.
It was all her.
Brilyn Hollyhand.
It was all her. I appreciate you.
That's so cool. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for scnr.com. That's Scanner News. Follow all of their work at Timcast News on the internet. I'm HannahClaire.B on Instagram. I'm HannahClaireB on Twitter or X or whatever it is. Thank you guys for everything you do. I really appreciate that you guys tune in every night. Have a good night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute for that members only show. Thanks for hanging out.